And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bash us, him.
Attention, roll call.
That's right. Good morning, everybody. 8:05 live Eastern time. And of course, it's Monday morning. It's Memorial Day. And hope everyone had a great weekend so far. It's a 3-day weekend. So it's not just about barbecues. It's not just a long weekend. And also pretty much opening weekend for summer. Even though New York, I see Marlon has got his hoodie back on. So I heard it was 3-digit numbers and then for a couple of days. And now it's back to being cold again. But really what it's about is honoring lost members that have served the ultimate sacrifice. And so for the Gold Star military families that are out there who are surviving someone who gave up their lives in the ultimate sacrifice, we appreciate you and we honor you. And let's honor our service members. You know, as a former Marine myself, I think about service members that I served with that are no longer here and families that have to survive that. So let's honor them and reflect on that. And so while we do that, let's jump into the topic here. Of course, good morning, everyone. This is quite interesting. There was a picture captured at service that went viral. It's 2 NYPD police officers with a picture with a young man flashing gang signs. And so I've heard people say, these cops should be terminated. I've heard people say, they're just joking around. The reality is, some people even said the picture is AI. And the reality is we don't know. And so what I can tell you from that picture is I'm not saying these guys should be terminated at all. I mean, first of all, before we jump to conclusion, we need to do a full investigation. Obviously, with a picture like this, we have to do a full investigation and find out, are these cops actually connected to any gang ties? Do they have any gang ties? And if they do, was this something that was discovered in their background history? So this opens up a Pandora's box and a lot of windows to speak about. Or were these guys just joking around with this kid and flash with gang signs? Because what I see, the gang signs aren't even proper. And then they got caught with a picture. Now, either way, it's not good, but here's the reality. And this is something that John and myself and Marlon were taught on the job. And I don't know if that's taught anymore, especially in today's day, is that you have to operate as if you're always on camera. And now the cops are always on camera. So you have to be even more careful. Listen, is this alarming? Of course, but we don't know. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. Were they joking around? We don't know. Should there be a full investigation? Absolutely. But could it be just a joke? We don't know, right? Sometimes you just joke around with kids. I've joked around with kids plenty of times, done stupid things just to, have the kids laugh, have a good time with the kids, community engagement. But are they gang members? We don't know. Something that has to be checked around. Marlon, John, good morning. John, what are your thoughts, brother?
Yeah, I got this picture a while back. I want to say like 2-3 months ago. And I didn't put it out because I was like, I don't know, that's not AI. And I don't really know the context behind it. It's just like a photo. You know what I mean? Photos could, they could not be correct, So a lot of people are responding saying that this is AI. I take a little bit of pause with that because there's another photo with them with their hands. And, you could always look at the hands kind of with AI and tell. So I'm not sure that this is AI and I'm not sure that it isn't. But I mean, I think it doesn't matter. I think it's a part of a bigger conversation anyway. So it's irrelevant if this happened because we see that with the social media in the rise, we see so many cops willing to do dumb things and photos and videos. And I think it's this should be like a teaching moment for the entire job. Now, like you said, just because they did throw up gang signs, does that mean they're actually gang members? If they did or if they didn't, I don't know. You know what I mean? Should it be investigated? Absolutely. Is it unprofessional? Absolutely. If in fact they did that, should there be discipline issued? Absolutely. But I think, a lot of people are like, oh, this is DEI, this is that. And I'm like, it's not that, man. This has always been the New York City Police Department. I mean, I think the better cops you're going to get in the New York City Police Department grew up in New York City. And, one of the things that I was told is don't work where you lived, because you don't want to interact with the kids that you were hanging out with in the streets, right? You want to work in a different precinct. So, but how do we know what those symbols actually are? I know people are relating them to the Bloods, to a set of the Bloods, whatever, the MAC, whatever. But how do you know like what these kids' ties are to the kid they're taking a photo with? Maybe it was a kid they went to high school with. Maybe it was a kid that was on their basketball or baseball team. I think it's dumb to take a photo at all with anyone unless it's just like a straight smiling photo. You know what I mean? I definitely think these stupid internet skits, all of these cops should stay away from, but they're all doing it. They're all doing it on duty. And this is what happens. You know what I mean? Now there's a huge investigation into it. And, the Post wrote an article about it like months after. Like, I was actually shocked it came out yesterday because it was so long ago that I got that photo. And my first thing is I was like, I looked to see like what the job say about it, and the job just said it's still under investigation. So if in fact it's AI, I mean that should have been the first thing that should have came out from the union and from the upper echelon of the NYPD. Like, look, this image was AI generated. We did an investigation. We determined this image is AI generated, but we're still investigating the photo itself. Something like that. Something before this cop gets his name smeared in the papers. Because I don't care what happens. If it turns out now, in fact, that 3 months from now they come out and they say, yeah, no, we did a forensic analysis of it. We had our computer crimes department do a forensic analysis of it. And in fact, it is AI. Every time you Google this kid's name, this is probably going to be the first photo that comes up.
Yeah, morning everyone. Happy Memorial Day. It's kind of a sucky weekend here in New York. So I'm not sure how many actual barbecues or get-togethers are happening this weekend. Yeah, I mean, not outside anyway. Yeah, this photo is actually, like John says, been circulating for a while, and it must be a slow weekend at the Post for Tina. Yeah. She had to pull one out of the bag, in order to have a story. But I, me personally, I don't think these guys are gang members either. I think they're just seems like they're just fooling around with the guy, or just making jokes about it. Um, I think though that these young guys need to be more aware of the fact that they are a celebrity now, and whatever they do that gets caught on camera, you know, if it can grab media attention, it will be magnified and used to you know get that notoriety and clicks. You know, I think maybe these guys look like, yeah. Well, these guys are obviously young guys. They're Gen Z cops, and I think the internet is the Gen Z guys were born with social media. And I think because of that, they might be too, in a lot of ways, maybe too complacent about it. Because it's been so normalized for them. Whereas like our generations, like we knew what the world was before social media existed. So I think it makes us a little more aware of the cameras and the outcomes that can happen if you do something stupid on camera. But yeah, I think the job isn't doing a great job, enough of a job of letting these guys know, you know, don't do anything stupid on camera, and just giving them harsh punishment is not exactly a way of dealing with that either. I really think the job needs to educate them more when they're in the academy and when they're rookies to know that some of these things could even cost you your job if it's dumb enough. If you do, if you fool around or you do, your behavior is dumb enough and it's caught on camera. But yeah, that's just what I'm thinking. So far.
There's some interesting flashpoints here. So, I'm no AI expert, but I agree with you, John. I looked at that picture and I analyzed it. I don't think it's AI. I think the hands and some of the features itself are just don't look like normally what you see on AI. I don't use AI too much when it comes to pictures, but just based on that picture, if I was a betting man, I would say it's not AI. And Mullen, I agree with you. I think that the response, the knee-jerk reaction we see from the police department often is harsh discipline, especially if they're tier 3, if they're general population. If they're tier 2 and they're connected by cronies, that might be a completely different standard. So should there be punishment here? Well, it depends on the context. I think that's really what's important here. I've joked around with gang members quite often. You know, I was doing anti-crime and special operations, doing patrol in the 112 precinct. You not only do you talk and communicate and do community engagement with good, obliging citizens, but you also get to know your perpetrators also, and you know them. Unfortunately, well, or fortunately, you could say, you start to know them on a first name basis, and they know you. And sometimes you have to joke around because it'd be quite exhausting if it's it's always a tense situation. So I would joke around with gang members. They would joke around with me too. I wouldn't throw up gang signs, but I would have community engagement. So were they joking around? I think context is really important. And ultimately, what I'm trying to say is something that was preached to us, especially I remember, is always operate on that you're on camera. And I always tell my cops the same thing: is always operate on that you're on camera, and always operate as like, is this something that mom could see? Right? Is this something that you can go home and tell your mom? Like, what is your mom going to think if you're out there throwing gang signs? And what is so ultimately, what perception of it? Right? So perception matters, and ultimately, it's not good judgment; it's bad judgment. But rookies, if they are rookies, which I assume they are expected to make mistakes. But it shows you, we often tell you that the police department lost that veteran apparatus. They don't have veteran guys to lean on to tell them how to operate. It was the veterans that taught us, right? John Mullen, it was the veterans that taught us how to engage a community, how to operate, what to be careful of. I mean, your sergeants and your lieutenants mentored you as well, but much different than the veteran cops. They really carried you and taught you. And I'm, I think we were pretty fortunate for having that. And these cops right now, about 50% of the job has less than 5 years on the job. So they don't have that apparatus to lean on. So do we have to have an investigation? Of course. Now we have to determine, are the actual gang members? So this becomes costly. This becomes cumbersome. Now there has to be a full investigation, but I think there has to be full transparency. Exactly. If it is AI, then publicly announce it and put this thing to bed. But the fact that we haven't heard that is another indication that this is not AI. But context matters. If they're just joking around with them, should there be a form of discipline? One of you guys said it was a teacher moment, right? I wasn't sure if John or Marlon, if you said it's a teacher moment. I agree. It's a teacher moment for the whole police department. Is it DEI? I don't know. I think it's more of just being young and immature and not really understanding that, John, you often say the cops are celebrities, right? And I agree, right? You're always in the public eye. And people are always trying to capture the police department in a negative light. And that's one thing we were always taught, is to protect that patch. And so that really has to be your appearance. So are they gang members? I mean, if I was a betting man, I think pictures tell, speak 1,000 words, and I look at that picture, I don't think so. I think they were just joking around. That is my observation. If I was a betting man, I think they were just joking around, and context really is important. And so ultimately, I think the department as a whole has lost its mission. There's no veterans. And so this should be more of a teacher moment. But if this is just a matter of discipline and keep it isolated, just these two guys, it's not having an impact on the rest of the police department. And, hey, how you should operate out there, what should be your public experience, a public appearance, not just your experience, but your appearance. But we're at a point right now where we have commanding officers who compete with who has the better Twitter page. We have cops that are out there doing TikTok videos. So this has become part of the culture. And that's where we need to shift the culture back to not always being on social media or being the next content creation as a police officer. You need to have a good public view. And it's unfortunate, but it is part of the police department's culture that has created videos like this or pictures like this that put cops in this precarious situation. John Mull, what do you think?
Yeah, I totally disagree with you guys about the discipline. I think that actions need to have consequences, just like I say about, crimes that you commit or actions you commit in your youth in school. Actions need consequences, and that's what's going to stop people from doing that. When I was a young cop, I worked with a kid, great kid, nice kid. Came from a lower class upbringing, came out of the hood. And, MySpace had just became available, right? MySpace was like the first form of social media. and he took a photo with himself with 2 guns like this, and he put the Biggie Smalls song "Niggas Bleed Just Like Us" on it. Puerto Rican kid, nice kid, really good-hearted kid, good cop, not a dirty cop, not a gang member, but he was just at the time doing what 20-year-olds were doing at that time. He was going on MySpace, picking up girls, meeting girls, really starting that first internet generation, and thinking that he was cool because he was a cop. And now I don't think he deserved to get terminated, but he did get terminated. And that was a huge wake-up call to the rest of the department, and that scared everyone straight. Now, I'm not saying that these kids need to be made sacrificial lambs if it was just a dumb photo and they were joking around, but there definitely needs to be discipline issued. If in fact it's AI, that should come out immediately, and then of course no discipline should be issued. But whether you were joking around or not, it's not funny. You're not in high school anymore. You're not a kid. You're not hanging out with your boys on the street, and you're in uniform. You have a much larger responsibility to the community, to yourself, to the department, to your family, to the name on under your badge. And I don't think that it should be taken lightly whatsoever. Now, the other aspect of it is, like I said earlier, like a lot of people like, oh, this is what happens when you hire DEI. And I'm like, both of those kids look like they could run a mile and a half to me. Both of those kids look like they could do push-ups. Both of those kids look like kids I'll jump in a car with and ride around with. Like, I don't think DEI is the issue here at all. In New York City, I personally believe you should be hiring from every neighborhood, every ethnicity, every race, every nationality, every creed, every gender. You should be hiring. You shouldn't be forcing those quotas, but you should be wanting to get people from all of these communities. And with that, you're going to get kids that know what the hell's happening on the street and hung out with some of the major players and grew up and went to school with some of the major players that go into a life of organized crime later on. And that's not a bad thing. It's actually a great thing. It's actually the reason that the NYPD for years had their finger on the pulse of everything that was happening in New York City and evolving, and be able to evolve. As crime evolves, the NYPD evolves, right? And so DEI plays nothing to do with this. This is people not being trained properly. This is people not understanding the responsibility that they bear. And if in fact this is them throwing gang signs, it's completely unprofessional, and it's people not being able to separate themselves from their past life. You have kids. I'll tell you right now that I know for a fact. I worked with a kid that grew up in Harlem. He was a stick-up kid in his teens. Now, he didn't get caught doing any of that stuff, but he was a bad kid, and he knew all the players in Harlem. And guess what? He's a very high-ranking boss in the NYPD right now, and he was a great cop. And he left that life behind him. He entered the police department. He left that life behind him. And, I spoke about it yesterday. Like, I put a tweet out, like my gym instructor, he hated me. I don't know why. He just thought he knew me from somewhere. And like, he had me so stereotyped that I was from Bensonhurst, but I really, I was born and I was there till I was like 12, and I had a girlfriend there, but I didn't hang out with those kids like in my late teens. I was a Staten Island kid at that time, but he had me pegged for like a kid from 18th Avenue. And I don't know what he thought I did to him or what he thought I said to him, but he hated my guts. And, one day in front of the whole gym block, he's like, look, you guys are NYPD cops now. You're not going to be out there on 18th Avenue getting into fist fights like McCary over here. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like everyone in the gym's like looking at me, and I'm like, I don't even know. I don't hang out on 18th Avenue. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what he's talking about. But, the point didn't miss me, right? Like, you have a big responsibility. Now, was I hanging out on 18th Avenue? No, but I was definitely hanging out in Duncan Hills and Staten Island. I was definitely going to bars on Bay Street. I was definitely going to bars in Bay Ridge. I was going to clubs in the city. The point didn't miss me. Like, I really am different now. Like that life's behind me. I really can't be hanging out with the kids from the neighborhoods doing dumb shit anymore, or else I'm not going to be part of the NYPD anymore. And I think that's a hard road for some people to do, because you really have to leave your past life, your past friends. And I'm not saying you can't be nice to them. I'm not saying you can't associate with them. I'm just saying you don't want to be in cars with them. You don't want to be traveling around with them. You don't want to be going to clubs with them. You don't want to get caught out there if they're doing a different type of life to you. Hi and bye, how you doing? Keep in touch. How's your family? Yeah, that's fine. But to really continue that close bond, it's going to get you in trouble, dude. Maybe this was a sign they did in high school and they were just joking around. You know what I mean? But it's not funny.
Yeah, it's not funny. It's not funny, and it can be taken, the wrong way, and it could be, interpreted by the media as, or the public at large as about, you know, um, about the quality of the NYPD's current recruitment. But I think part of the problem is this is actually like a larger social discussion that we could have on this. The problem is that a lot of the street culture has embedded itself into culture in general. You know, remember, as an example, I'm gonna bring up that time. It just came to me right now. Remember that time Serena Williams did the crip walk at the U.S. Open, right? And think of it for a second. She's doing a gang a gang walk, or throwing up gang signs at the U.S. Open. Okay,
And
this was
she's
a
not a
couple
crib
years
member.
ago. No, she's not. She's
She
not.
never even hung out with them.
Yeah, she's not. But the
He
thing
was
is,
far
the
from
point I'm
crip.
trying to make here is that this street culture and a lot of things from gang culture has embedded itself into certain communities, especially black and brown communities, largely because of rap. It's in a lot of ways, it's unfortunately part of their culture now. And I'm not saying it's right, but I'm saying it's hard to tell people who come from a lot of these communities that's not right. That's going to be get misinterpreted the wrong way when you do it. People might think you're a gang member. People might think you're still into that culture. And it's even harder when you have kids who were, the Gen Z generation, which is different, and I talk about it all the time. Gen Zers, they grew up with social media. They grew up with, you know from the get-go, they know what rap is. Our generation, we grew up and then rap became a thing. It really exploded. They grew up, rappers is there since they were born, and the aspects of it that have invaded culture have been there since they were born. And uh, and also, it doesn't help Gen Z that when they come on the job is not the same anymore. The job itself is like kind of gone soft on a lot of these things, but the job is more, what's the word they keep using, trying to more inclusive. Now. So I think in general, society itself is kind of changed for these kids, and you know, I don't think harsh discipline is the right way to go about it because society has changed. I think it starts with the job being more straightforward and telling them at the academy, telling them at the academy before they become a cop that certain things they do, you can't do that, especially in uniform. I just I I'm more lenient to these guys, and I hope they don't get. I hope their career doesn't get stunted. I do agree there should be an investigation to find out, if this was just a joke. But I hope their career is not too harmed by it. Okay. And I saw a comment from JDP whether I would allow these kids to, either one of these guys near my search warrant. Well, to be fair, JDP, I don't want anybody on my search warrant because even the guys who don't do stupid shit, I don't want you involved in my search warrant because it's more of a problem for me, regardless of who you are. Unless you're in the FIO's office and I know you, stay out of my warrant. So.
Well, John, I didn't say that there shouldn't be any discipline. I said there shouldn't be harsh discipline. And the reason why I say that is because I knew that cop as well. The one that you talk about in Mike's space. We were rookies together, right? I don't want to say his last name. People know, but it rhymes with Cadillo, right? And I foresaw him as being a good cop. I mean, he was a good guy. I liked him, and he would have had a great future. And I think the discipline that was put upon him was way too harsh and way too severe. And it just shows you the pendulum has swung so far in the NYPD. The discipline was so harsh to keep the standards high, and I understand that in comparison to now. But at the same token, let's be honest, this didn't happen in a vacuum here. The culture of policing has changed. It's there's so much emphasis and focus on social media. And these cops, these young guys, they grow up in this social media era, and everything is about content creation. And as I said before, based on my observations looking at it, it looks like they were just joking around. Does it call for a full investigation? Yes. And I think some people in the chat, have to be honest, my friends and listeners here, some of you I think are being way too harsh, because I think we all joked around with people in the street before, with gang members, even the most vile perpetrators, right? Part of community engagement. And I'm sure some of the things that we've done could have been construed differently if caught on camera. Some of us were just lucky or smarter about it. And I just think these guys really need to be educated that you're wearing a professional uniform now. And it doesn't necessarily mean there should be harsh discipline. I don't think they should be terminated unless they are gang members and they actually have ties to it. But if they're just joking around, maybe they don't even understand the concept of what these gangs are and really what they mean. Just because you grew up in New York City, or even if you didn't grow up in New York City, that doesn't mean you really understand those gangs. I mean, you see sometimes on social media, you see white kids from suburban and even rural neighborhoods like throwing up gang signs and joking around, and they don't even really understand it. They don't even understand the magnitude of it. So I'm not giving them a pass, but they are young, and sometimes we have to have. Well, at least I could say this. I think discipline should be proportioned, and I think that some people are being way too harsh. What is the actual context? If they're just joking around, we need to educate them. Hey, I get it. You want to joke around. You want to have community engagement. You want to be able to relate to the kids in the neighborhood, but you have to be careful of what gets caught on camera. You're wearing this uniform. That picture could have been less than 1 second, but now we could talk about this for hours, and the media can construe it in any facet that they want. So I'm not saying that we should be easy on them, but we should be proportionate. And we shouldn't be so righteous to say, condemn them. Let's be honest and think these are still two young guys. I mean, some cops get on at 21 years old. How mature are you at 21 years old? So, again, the context is really important. And I think that ultimately it doesn't mean they're bad guys. But, yes, there's a call for a full investigation. And let's see what that investigation unfolds. If they were gang members and should have never been hired, obviously we should drop that hammer on them. If they were just joking around, then we need to really change the culture and shift the entire police department. And I blame the leadership. It's all about content creation. And plenty of executives know exactly what I'm talking about. Let's take a picture here. It's always about let's take a picture with the community. I saw it in the later years in the tenure of my career. Let's take a picture here. Let's take a picture. Everything was about pictures and videos. And these cops may also think that, hey, we're taking a picture with the guys in community engagement. They may not even know that they're doing something wrong. So the culture of the shift, we can't pretend this is happening in a vacuum. It's all about social media. And cops have to understand that you have a public presence and you have to have a professional appearance. And that's what's ultimately important.
Yeah. So again, I'm going to say there's a big problem, one, with the hiring, right? And we've talked about that before, where, they're hiring and they're not doing the necessary background checks, and they're bringing people onto the job prior to their background checks coming back, which is a problem because now you already hired this dude. And if you find out he's a gang member later or he's wanted in a crime later, how are you just terminating? You have a big problem, like why you hired them. And that happened, recently with Inspector Terrell Anderson, where we saw there were overrides done, right? And so that leads to bad public perception now when you have cops doing dumb things. But I'm definitely not going to pretend like, oh, this is a new phenomenon, or this is something that, maybe social media is a new phenomenon, but this is a cultural issue that's always been in New York City. Right. What you do when you have a problem, like 1930s, there was a gang running around Brownsville, the Brownsville boys, right?
Murder Inc. too.
The Brownsville boys, right? And what happened is the NYPD was having a big problem in that neighborhood. They didn't understand what was going on. The Brownsville boys were all poor Jewish kids from the neighborhood. Brownsville at that time was called Little Jerusalem, right? And so what the NYPD did was they recruited in Little Jerusalem. They recruited kids that grew up with these kids, that knew the Brownsville boys, that went to school with them, that understood how they operated,
right, brother.
knew what was happening. And so, and then the same's true like when we moved into the rap era, right? Then they started going, all right, who are these hip hop kids? Let's bring these kids in. Like, let's get them into the department. And the same thing with drill rap, right? Like they targeted that audience with drill rap. But the thing where I believe that we held the line on is there was strict compliance, right? Where there was like, again, I often talk about how criminal association is a complete, utter joke, right? It's a complete, utter joke, especially if you grew up in New York City. Your entire family you probably criminally associate with everyone, including your father, all your uncles, every single one of your neighbors. Everyone has some form of criminality in their background, whether it's major or minor. It's just the nomenclature of New York City is where there are fines and there are arrests for nonsense because there's so many people that they try to keep everybody in line to have that omnipresence. They focus down on minor stuff, and everyone has some form of that in their background. So I talk about it a lot, but there needs to be that healthy fear of crossing that line into actually associating with criminals, because we have had that now, right? Look at mafia cops, Louis Eppolito, Stephen Caracappa. They come from Bensonhurst. They know everybody in Bensonhurst. They work in the 6-2 precinct. They're doing hits for Scarpa, for Greg Scarpa. You know what I mean? And that's where, and they're associated with them and they're doing this. And so like, this is something that's always been. And even at that time, they would go after you hard. And they went after Louis Eppolito very hard for criminal association, but they couldn't get him on. And if they would have got him on that charge earlier on, it would have saved a lot of what happened later on, a lot of embarrassment to the department later on. And I think, you can't really take this as a joke, because this could really come back to bite the entire department in the ass. So, it really should be, it should be a teaching moment. And I'm not saying, look, if it was a dumb joke, I'm not saying that they should be fired. I'm not saying that they should have their life ruined for taking a stupid picture at all. I don't mean that at all, but there should be a clear message set that like, we're not going to tolerate any of this garbage. Like, you're a police officer now, you're going to act like it. You are held to a higher standard in society, and that's it. Like, that's it, and right now, we don't have that in any aspect of the criminal justice system. We don't have that when we deal with children in school that are problem children. We don't have that with criminal members of society. And if we're going to break that line with the cops, you expect a lot more of this to happen. Expect a lot more of this, and people think it's okay to go out on social media and make fools of themselves. And I see everybody in the chat saying it's AI, it's AI. I don't know whether it's AI or not. I'm telling you right now, I find it very strange that every person that's sending me that opposite photo, originally saying it's AI, it's AI, it's AI, all connected to a certain organization. I find that very strange, and it makes me think, is that photo AI or is that photo AI? Like, which one's actually AI? And so, and I like, if it's AI, like, the job should have came out immediately, and this is a non-issue, and we don't even need to talk about it further. But I think the issue may arise more in the future with social media, and that's why there should be a zero tolerance policy for it. If in fact they did do it, I think that there should be serious discipline for it.
Yeah, I'm gonna push back against that. I'm against the serious discipline for it, because again, the problem is we're not dealing with an isolated issue. Your problem is the entire organization. If we're gonna have an honest discussion if we're gonna have clear messaging about this in the academy, we also have to have clear messaging about, your grooming standards. I'm seeing rookies. You're a rookie coming out of the academy with a big beard. I have a problem with that. In fact, I think you need to earn that beard. To be honest with you, I think I think I didn't start walking around with a beard until I was in you know in the FIO's office, really, or my latter days and conditions. But I think you the clear messaging has to extend to the other things that the job is tolerating, because again, you also have rookies that are coming at the academies that are overweight already. Okay, if you're allowing, you know, it's diminished standards, right? That leads to things like this. Okay, so if we're going to target specifically this, then we still have a whole bunch of other problems that can, lead to more issues like this in the future. You can't just tell them, hey, don't just throw up gang signs. You need more discipline overall in the entire apparatus, right? And I think that discipline has to start with, the grooming, your uniform, your presentation, how you look in that uniform. And then, once all of that is in place, then you can put down harsh penalties for doing things like this. But until you fix the other things, like I just don't think you can come down hard on these guys for that. Um so
Well, I think also, excuse me. I think it's something we should also talk about now that this picture has surfaced, right? Well, if you look at Corey Pegues, right, which Corey I like a lot. He talks about his experiences when he was young, being a gang member and things like that. And it's an interesting conversation because when I was in the Marines, I've dealt with all walks of life, and I was overseas with some guys that were straight A's, straight-laced kids who grew up from military families, so just straight-laced people. But I also was in the Marines with guys that claimed to be in gangs when they were kids, and then they changed their lives around, and they had some heroics in combat or just in life. And I believe, like in the military, we give second chances. But when it comes to the police department, many people are very righteous and don't believe in giving people second chances. Like almost like you have to walk this perfect fine, walk this perfect fine line to become a cop. And John, you often talk about how you were arrested, and look how mature you came out and the impact you've had on policing. And so the reason why I speak about that is the same thing with Corey Pegues. He talks about the things he did when he was young. And look at the impact he's had on policing and how inspirational he's been to some people. And unfortunately, when it comes to policing, a lot of times people don't believe that people deserve second chances. And I believe people do. And sometimes even third chances. And the question is, sometimes people that have come from gang culture or things like that, who have made mistakes growing up, they bring a lot of perspective to the police department, especially when they change, because they see things from both sides of the coin. So I think it's important to analyze these things. Like let's say it turns out they weren't a gang and they completely turned their lives around, and maybe they're trying to tell this kid, who knows? I'm just being rhetorical here. Let's say they told the kid, like, look how stupid you look. Look, let's take a picture together, just show you how stupid you look, change your life around, and that picture gets caught. And so what I'm trying to say is, what if it turns out they are gang members, completely turn their lives around? Does that change anything? Should they still be cops? And I think the answer is yes. I think that for some, I worked in the South Bronx, worked in a 120 precinct at Lower East Side, and John Mullen, I'm sure you guys can agree. I blocked up a lot of kids that you thought, wow, like life was just gang culture. And then when I got them in it, especially Mullen, because you were at FIO doing debriefs, and I got them in a closed room, just one-on-one. Some of these kids did not want to be in a gang at all, but it was just about survival, and they had to survive because they grew up in rough neighborhoods. Like, Patterson in the South Bronx, Patterson houses and Mott Haven are right across from each other. If you're a kid 12, 15 years old, if you're not in a gang, you're home all day in your room. Even if you're just playing basketball, you have to represent something. And so what if these kids grew up in a neighborhood where they had to represent something? And maybe what if they're trying to, have a teaching moment to this kid? Say, hey, look, you look stupid. So does that change anything? That's why context is so important. We don't know exactly what happened here. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of people don't give second chances when it comes to the police department. I think we're a lot more we give a lot more second chances to guys when they go into the military, but not when it comes to the police. Far different. I remember years ago, John Mullen, if you remember, there was a kid who was a war hero in Iraq, and he had a gun charge before that. He had a gun charge when he was young, changed his life around, went to the army, became a hero in Iraq, and then he tried to get into the police department, couldn't get the job. And I thought, wow, we all make mistakes in life. I mean, who's not impervious? I mean, we're all sinners. Who doesn't make mistakes? And it's really how you learn from it. So, what are you guys' thoughts on that?
I think the whole police department's full of shit. Like, I don't think people should get into the policing like if you've had recent criminality in your background. But if you've moved away from criminality from like since you're 15 or 17 to the time you're 23 or 25 or 26, I totally understand it. The male brain, they say, doesn't even really develop till 23, and I'll probably give myself about 26 or 27 until I actually fully matured, and I was already a cop for a couple, like 4 years almost at that point. But I think, I think, yeah, 100% people need second chances, and 100% the NYPD should allow criminality in people's backgrounds and be hiring from these communities. But again, like Marlon, I don't understand how you would operate the police department at all. Like if you're not going to have a line for anything, that's exactly how we deter this behavior and we start to clean up all of the actions. If you're not going to have a line like, oh yeah, we're not going to be throwing up gang signs in uniform, and that is not acceptable, you're just going to get more of it. And it's the same thing I say when, we're going to show a video in a little while. Some cop dressed like an idiot gets himself abused on the streets of New York, walks into his station house, does nothing with a cup of coffee, and while he's on the phone getting abused, having people push him, touch him, tell him they're going to rob him, threaten him. And, and I'm like, to me, I solved that problem easy. Like that kid, whatever his name, Stitch the camera guy, who all these other clowns that are out there, I solved those problems easy. It's no problem. I'm going to lock you up. There's going to be a consequence for your action. You're going to understand that when you approach me in a violent and tumultuous manner, that's not acceptable in society. And every time you do that, you're going to be placed in handcuffs. And I don't care what the DA does, because you're going to spend the night in central booking. It's not up to it. It's not really my concern what the DA does with that arrest. You violated XYZ. You're going to go there. It doesn't matter to me. And I guarantee you that when Stitch the camera guy sees me, he's not going to come up and act tough. He might talk some shit from 5 feet away, but he ain't going to get in my face, and he's not going to put himself in a position. He's going to know what my line is, what's acceptable to cross. And if he pulls some other bullshit, then we're going to push that line again. You're not going to do this. If you do this, we're going to arrest you. And it's the same thing with cops, dude. I think that there needs to be standards, and we need to hold those lines. And again, I'm not saying that we should absolutely be hiring kids from these neighborhoods, kids that maybe were in gangs, absolutely. I mean, and I think they're going to be the better cops you're going to have. I do. But there are definitely societal issues there. There are definitely a lot of problems that could happen there. And that's exactly why we have the rule where the NYPD doesn't want you to work where you grow up. But unfortunately, with such a large organization, that sometimes that happens. You live in a different area now, but boom, just miraculously, by any of the 100 and something places you could go get assigned right out of the academy, they put you right in the spot where you grew up in, right where you went to school in. And that could lead, the reason they do that is they're worried about corruption. They're worried about those societal influences, those neighborhood influences on you, coming back to bite you in the ass. And it's happened with a lot of people. And I think, again, Louis Apolito and Stephen Caracappa are a great example of that. Again, it's not a question of should we be hiring people with some criminality in their background. It's that we need to have strict standards. And until we start to push back at things that aren't right currently, like these hiring practices, the grooming standards, until there starts to be lines drawn in the sand, like you're not going to do this, you're not going to do that, you're not going to do this. Until we have those standards in place, everything's wide open. There are no standards, and I think we just watch the NYPD devolve further if things like this, or be like, they're young, they're stupid. Yeah, absolutely. They're young, they're stupid. If in fact they took that picture and it was a joke, I'm all with you. I'm totally with you. They're young, they're stupid. This shouldn't ruin their life, but they should be made to known you should never do this again. And that's going to set the example for everybody else that grew up in these neighborhoods, that has friends that were in gangs, that maybe threw gang signs in high school, that maybe did it, went to the clubs and they were doing whatever they were doing. They ain't going to do it again. And that's the only way it's going to work. And it's the same thing on anything. Like, actions have to have consequences. Right now in society, actions no longer have consequences. And where the society, no, it's all right. No, it's not all right. It's not. It's not okay. You disgraced that uniform. You disgraced your name. You look like an idiot. And you should be made now to feel like an idiot. And how are you going to do that? You're going to suffer a consequence for it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to really push back on that, John. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't like that. That sounds too much like the Kelly style of punishment to me. And I had a major problems with Kelly's style of discipline, because again, the problem is, like, what used to annoy me about that is that you'd have harsh punishment, and then you get in your RMP and you notice half your RMP's wheel is eaten out, and there's pen marks all over the top of the roof of the interior of the RMP. That's if the RMP worked, or the AC didn't work in the summertime. My problem with that is you need a whole of organization approach. Okay, you can't just selectively discipline for this. You need to fix the entire problem, not just piecemeal it. My I'm not saying you don't have a line, draw the line here. I'm saying simply that you cannot tell me it's okay for rookies to get out of the academy looking fat and sloppy, and then tell me you want to harshly discipline these guys. You get to this behavior by having rookies come out of the academy fat and undisciplined. Okay, if you don't have discipline, you're going to have incidents like this. It may not be that necessarily be guys throwing up gang signs, but it's going to be guys doing other stupid shit on camera, because there's no discipline. There's no standards anymore. My whole point is that these guys, their careers shouldn't be wrecked. The punishment shouldn't be harsh, but there should be a warning to them. Okay, a warning that, if you're being watched, and if you do dumb shit again, that's it. You're not going to be babied again. And then we need to go back to the academy and look at the entire organization as a whole. Look at the training we're giving. Look at the loss of discipline and structure that has happened in the NYPD, which is a byproduct of the NYPD search for diversifying the job and inclusivity, which seems to be like we're okay with anything and everything. We it's okay again to come out of the academy looking like a fat sloppy rookie. Okay, if I'm in charge, that's not happening. And I prevent guys from throwing up gang signs on camera by going in the academy and telling you better get in shape, otherwise you're not getting pinned. Okay, period. Okay, and the other problem is when we piecemeal this, it's the I'm actually surprised I'm going to take the Guardian's position on this, and more than likely Hispanic society's position on this. Problem is, but I'm going to also say something they're not going to like hearing too. The problem is, if you piecemeal it, the kids from that background might get hurt even more, because a lot of these kids come from broken families. They come from broken communities, broken families, and a lot of them grow up without fathers. And without a father there, they don't have that discipline or someone to a male role model in their life. A lot of them, without that, didn't grow up with the discipline that's needed to become a cop. And unfortunately, what now happens is it becomes society's larger issue in society. And in this case, it's a larger issue that the job would have to deal with. That is a massive conversation that we won't be able to solve here. But my entire point is that piecemeal it, because when you piecemeal it, those kids are gonna get harmed more because, again, street culture and gang culture has kind of embedded itself in black culture, black American culture, and brown culture in these neighborhoods. And at this point, how do you differentiate? When they're an adult, how does the police department play parent when a lot of these people didn't have discipline for 20, 21, 25 years of their life? It's hard. And the way we fix that is by setting standards in the academy and adhering to those standards. Okay. You're not allowed to get out of this academy looking like a fat slob. Okay. And you're not allowed to throw gang signs. Okay.
But
Once we
when you
fix
do,
that,
we're
we
gonna
solve
when
that.
you do, we're gonna pat you on the back and say it's okay, honey.
No, no, no. That's a temporary solution to a long-term problem. My temporary solution is we warn these guys that stupid shit, don't do stupid shit on camera again. And then we go back to fixing the organization so that the next guy who does that in the future will get that harsh discipline. I'm not a fan of harsh discipline when you have a broken organization that needs fixing. Uh, we fix the organization, and then we can have harsh punish discipline. But you
But
can't have that Kelly
but
discipline
again, you
when you
can't
have
fix
broken
the
organization.
organization without setting hard lines. It's never getting fixed. Your police department will look like Eddie Caban's police department.
No, no,
It's
no,
gonna
no,
be a
no.
disaster, dude.
It
Oh,
would.
he grew up without a father. Oh, we can't really, oh, he let the girl in his back seat, and now she's making claims that he jerked off on her. But it's they're young kids; they don't know any better. The academy sucks. They didn't teach them right.
No, 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 no. That's not what I'm saying, John. I'm saying that we need to fix the organization. I'm saying I go back to the academy and I go head to toe. I go to the chiefs, tell them stop banging your drivers and giving cash for ass. I tell them I'm gonna put you under the same light that I put the blue shirts under. And if you screw up, you're getting out the door. And then I go to the academy and I tell the fat rookies that they better get in shape or they're not getting pinned. I do a whole of organization. I fix the entire organization and instill discipline from the top down. Because if we're doing piecemeal, it's not going to work. It's just not going to work.
Nobody's singling these kids out. They singled themselves out. That's I think that's what is being missed from the whole thing. Their actions brought the highlight on them. Their actions brought them onto the front cover of the newspaper, made the entire department look like idiots, made themselves look like idiots. There has to be action, and 100%. I'll take Ray Kelly's police department any day over any of the other versions of the New York City Police Department. It was the most professional. There's no way to get all of these kids from all of these different backgrounds, a lot of people without fathers, a lot of people without discipline, a lot of people without direction. There's no way to get them into line. And everyone as an organization, if there isn't hard lines there, dude. I don't know. I go back. I agree with you. I agree with you. Other things need to be fixed, but to just give them a pat on the back, it's the criminal justice reform style of reforming the police department. It's ultimately, I see it as a huge failure.
So I think this is a great conversation. So I would say I understand Maul's position. I kind of align with him in some ways. I'm not saying give them a pat on the back. So what I'm saying is that we have to shift the culture of the NYPD. We have to have standards. And the problem that I have is discipline is because we have no more standards. We have unprofessional leadership that's on social media just embarrassing themselves in different facets. We've had John Shell embarrass himself and embarrass the police department. He's not throwing up gang signs, but he's being unprofessional. We've had an entire khaki unit on social media embarrassing themselves, being unprofessional. So what is the context of it? Is this unprofessional appearance? Common sense would tell you, not to do something like this in uniform. But we've lost standards. So I agree. In the Kelly style of policing, we've had a standard, right? And the standard was protect that patch and don't do anything that's going to be misrepresented. So it was kind of like a standard. It was harsh discipline for everyone. And that I agree with. Either you're going to not discipline anyone at all or discipline everyone harshly. But it can't be a tiered system where some people get disciplined and some don't. And that's unfortunately what we see in the police department. But also context is really important when it comes to this, as far as that's why I said it doesn't necessarily have to be harsh discipline. If we find out these guys are gang members and they did some bad stuff and they're still connected to it, and there's a chance that these guys could still have some involvement, then they need to go. But I learned a lot about gang life, working in housing, growing up in some rough neighborhoods myself, and ultimately by reading one of the best books I've ever read in my life. And the author, his name is Sudesh Venkatesh. And he was a sociologist in college and studying gang life. And he studied gang life in Chicago. And what I learned about that book, it was called The Gang Leader for a Day. And it's not everyone in a gang, even though they're throwing up those gang signs, is really a gang member. Maybe they're kind of connected in some way because they live in that neighborhood. But there's also like an economic wheel that goes on in housing or certain rough neighborhoods that are involved with gangs. Not everyone in that gang is really a full-fledged gang member. And so they might not even understand the context of themselves putting out that picture. Common sense would tell you not to take that picture. But I think also common sense has been lost within the police department because of the leadership. And I think these kids today, they don't know what's right or wrong, right? Well, if I'm doing community engagement and taking pictures with these kids, it's okay because my commanding officers are competing on social media. Yes, common sense would tell you not to do it. But I think we really lost common sense within the police department. You have leadership that's completely unprofessional on social media. Ultimately, these kids may think, hey, maybe I am doing the right thing. They see all these TikTok cops making YouTube videos. I mean, to us, common sense would tell you not to do it. But we grew up in a total different era. And the police department that we grew up in had much harsher and stricter standards. And exactly that, it had standards. And I think the police department now doesn't have standards. So how do we discipline these kids? And there has to be levels of discipline. I do believe discipline should be proportionate. As I said, these kids are involved in gangs and they still have connections. And ultimately, they have potential for being perpetrators in the police department. They need to go. But if they're just joking around, it could be just a conversation. It could be a foot post. It could be actually written discipline. It could be a teaching moment for the entire police department and how you should operate going forward. But there's no more standards in the police department. We have chiefs that get down on a knee showing a political statement in comparison to a captain who says Zohran Mamdani is not his mayor. One gets transferred, the other guys get honored. So there's zero standards within this police department. So I understand both your positions, and I don't think either one is wrong. We do need a stricter standard. The Kelly style was a stricter standard. I think it was too far over. Yes. And Mom, what you're saying, I think is right. We can't live in a vacuum. We have to fix the police department. And the police department is broken. It's a broken system, and it's because of the leadership. Look what happened at One Police Plaza. Jeffrey Madju was never even disciplined. And yet we're going to discipline these cops. We're so hard on the cops in comparison to the leadership. And that's ultimately what I see as the problem. There's no standard. I have no problem. If it turns out these kids were fully aware of what they're doing and the implications, then discipline should be dealt properly. But at the same token, discipline should be dealt properly to the upper management who's been unprofessional, just tearing through the entire police department. And that's my point to this.
Yeah. One quick thing. I have a real problem with Kelly, not to say that we weren't great back then, but it was in spite of a lot of things that were happening from upper management. Okay. As good as disciplined as Kelly's leadership approach was, okay, the problem was the organization was broken. Okay. You can't, I've said many times before, like we couldn't find RMP some nights, or that in the middle of the hot summer, I'm driving around, me and my partner in the RMP without any AC. We have computers. You can't find ink ribbon for typewriters. You have broken computers all over the place. You had a broken organization, and again, you had that Kelly style of discipline, which was harsh. So I think the best this job is in those first 2 or 3 years when Bratton came back. I was more than happy to have Kelly leave. I thought he had outlasted his time on the job, and the job had needed some new energy in it. Cops worked hard back then, but we worked hard in spite of all the handicaps that the handicap and resources that the job didn't give us. So I'm not going to say that Kelly's was the best that the job was. So
No, but like, so what I'm saying is that the police department was the most professional that it was at that point. When Bratton came in, did he do a lot of things to upgrade the policing, like as far as bringing us into the 21st century? Yeah, sure. He did some great things. He upgraded facilities. We got new computers. People got cell phones. Like he did all that good stuff. But that was, the problem why you think that that was a good time for policing. That was actually the start of the downfall of the NYPD in New York City, because no one was paying attention to what the politics were happening in New York City. And that was the end of anti-crime. That was the end of proactive policing. You guys just didn't get the message yet because you weren't paying attention to the politics in New York City. And it took 10 years to degrade, to continue to take away all of these tools, these vital tools from policing. Like, that was the beginning of the end. And yes, 100%, we were great in spite of all of those failures at the top. But we were only great because of the system that we were all in. We were all in working towards one goal. Like the Bratton administration under de Blasio was full of shit. Did they upgrade the organization? Sure they did. Yeah, sure they did. But when we come to policing New York City and being a competent police force, that was the beginning of the end of it. And now you're seeing all of this shit that's happening. And you're like, why is this? This is all a result of, we're going to do all this bullshit that doesn't make any sense. And we're going to kowtown to the left and the criminal justice reforms. And we're going to pretend like everyone matters. Everyone's a unique individual. We care about, oh, you didn't have a father? Okay. Oh, you grew up poor? Okay. Instead of being like, no, you're a police officer now, be a man, act like one, instead of having that mindset. And so I think we devolved totally. Yeah, did crime fall under the de Blasio administration? Yeah, it did. But that was a result of the Ray Kelly style of policing. That was a result of the Bloomberg years and the Giuliani years. That was not a result of what de Blasio was doing. That was an effect. And like, it was only a matter of time before all of this happened. Anyone that was paying attention to politics at that time, you knew exactly where we would be at the end of de Blasio's term. It was the beginning of the end of actual competent policing. Our response times increased significantly. The level of cop that you got was downgraded significantly. DEI was king. All that shit's nonsense. You know what I mean? All this stupid social media era, it all came in under that administration. So I personally think, I think that Bill Bratton's been the biggest detriment to policing nationally and the NYPD that it can't even be understated what the level that he's brought policing to. And what he's done is he brought it from an organization that was competent law enforcement to an organization that's on its knees, that cows down to these leftist politicians, that pushes policies that do not work. I think the violence intervention program, I solely blame on him, because he had the voice and the platform at the time to push back against it, and he didn't. DEI, he had the voice and the platform to push back against it, and he didn't. 30 for 30, he had the voice and the platform to push back against it, and he did it. And not only did he not push back against any of those things, he furthered them, because he told everybody these are great things and this is what we should do and this is how it should be. And so I'll take Ray Kelly being way too harsh any day, and the organization not and the infrastructure crumbling, rather than, at least we had a competent mission. We were mission orientated. We knew what we were doing, and you were backed. Instead of going up there and saying, oh, read the script that Bill de Blasio gave me, we failed. Or firing a kid that did absolutely nothing wrong while you're up on stage crying because you sold your soul.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about it still, because keep in mind also that the 250ing and the numbers policing came under Kelly too, and that was pure bullshit, And even the rookies would tell you that was pure bullshit when they would tell you to, make sure you come back in with a 250s for the night and 1C and that nonsense, and a lot of the problems that we face now come from that, and it comes from the nobody telling these chiefs at the top that that was a stupid idea. And again,
And what changed?
huh?
What's changed?
Well, that still goes on. Don't get me wrong. It's just that they're more professional about how they tell you and more slick about how they get it done. But how many of these supervisors grew? They are from that era. I've said before that we need an entire generation of supervisors to leave the job for that mentality to fully get washed away from the job. And it's my entire point here is simply that you know the job was broken under Kelly just as much as under Brad, just in a different form. And I'm not saying that it was what Bratton did when he clearly went over the deep end in the latter years of his second term, but I'm also saying that you know things weren't all that great under Kelly. It's just we go from one jumping off the edge of one cliff to jumping off the edge of another cliff, and we need to get back in the middle where cops have the resources to do their job, and therefore they have pride in doing their job. They don't feel like doing their job means they have to work against the administration itself. But we also need to have a job that is um that has discipline, and that not everything is okay just because we want to be inclusive and diverse. That's the problem. We need something in the middle. We can't have it both ways, apparently. And that is why we're here where we are, and we're going to talk about that other kid later on. And when you see that again, it's the product of having no discipline in general in this organization, that you get to problems like this because there's no discipline. You need to fix the discipline as a whole in order to fix issues like that.
I think it starts from the top. It has to start from the top. It has to start from leadership. And I compare the police department to my time in the Marine Corps. And in the Marines, yeah, it's really harsh, it's super strict, but there's a standard, right? And there's a standard. Everyone understands that when you're in uniform, you're not just represent yourself, and you're not just representing the Marine Corps at that time. Every Marine is taught you're representing Marine Corps history, and that's why they all Marines read history, so that you honor the people that came before you. And maybe that's something they should start doing in the police department, is make the cops. John, you've been really into history, reading about old-time cops in the police department. That's something they should do with the cops now, is make them read history of the police department. Much more get involved in the history so that when they wear that uniform, they honor it. But at the same token, how can you honor it when we have the upper echelon, some of them walking around so unprofessional, their bellies are hanging out of their uniform, they look ridiculous, they're not held accountable for the mistakes they've made, intentional mistakes, and yet we're always so harsh on the cops. So yes. Do I think it's silly to have a picture out there, with gang signs? Of course it is. It's not common sense. Mike 123 says, shout out to Smedley Butler. Yeah, absolutely. Hardcore Marine who embodied the history of the Marine Corps. And we need people that embody the history of the police department. And what's the legacy at this point? And I get it. During the Kelly time, I would not say it was perfect. And I don't think John's saying it's flawless. He's saying it was a better version. And I get it. It was, and unfortunately, I believe it's like taking a medicine, right? When you take medicine, if there's no side effect, that medicine's not going to work. There's always going to be a side effect. And the harsh, strict standards during the Kelly era were good, right? They gave up more of a professional standard, a better appearance. But the side effect was it was micromanaged. And with micromanagement comes less creativity and less cops that are able to have that thinking apparatus, the critical thinking, because it was so micromanaged. And what we have now is just like a free-for-all, and it's out of control. But I just want to say, like, it's interesting how we a lot of people get touched by this, right? Because what's the difference between, we had that female, we did an episode maybe about 2 years ago, who was making dance videos in transit on TikTok in uniform. It probably took her the entire day making these stupid dance videos. And to me, they're both so unprofessional. And the difference is we get so honed in on the one with the gang signs is because we associate those gang signs as symbolism to violence. And I think, yes, are gangs violent? And that's why I mentioned that book, Gang Leader for a Day, is that while gangs could be violent, a lot of people in those gangs are not really violent. They're just kind of part of it because that's kind of the community in a particular area. Like I mentioned, Patterson, Mott Haven. I knew plenty of kids that were in gangs and they threw up signs, but they really weren't gang members. You know, that was their association. That was their community for survival. And so while we believe it's common sense, and it is common sense, you should know better. At the same token, they really need to preach how important it is when you wear that uniform. What does that represent? You're carrying the history of the police department. And I don't think cops understand that. I don't think they're teaching that. I don't even know what they're teaching right now. I think, honestly, they're just putting these cops out there, and they're not teaching them anything. And all they know is if you're at the top of the NYPD, you can do whatever you want. You can have a brothel at one police plaza. You can have as much overtime. You can make as much money as you want. If you're connected by nepotism, you can do whatever you want. But if you're in general population, then you might be in trouble. So what are the standards? Like, why is it some girl could dance on TikTok the entire day, but these kids took a picture for a second? Which one is worse? You know, is one worse than the other? If these guys weren't gang members and it's just a picture, which one's worse? So there's a lot to look at here. And I think the standards are so important. That's why, John, I understand what you're saying. We need standards and we need a balance. Should it be as far as crazy as during Kelly era? It should be what it is now. If we could find some balance, it would be much better. But the only way to find balance is to have good leadership.
And we haven't had it since Kelly. You know, was he perfect? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But he was much better than this. You know, and I agree. The 250s got out of hand. But instead of coming out in support of doing it properly, instead what we had is, no, we're going to do away with it while still pushing our cops to go out there and stop people and just not document it and hang. And then we gave our cops discretion. So basically take all the liability off of New York City. And, you know, the number game hasn't changed. I just read yesterday about two kids. They shot up a park. They shot up a park. I think over seven rounds they let go into a park each. And nobody was hit miraculously. Guess what they're wanted for? Reckless endangerment. You know, is that not a numbers game? Like that is attempted assault. That is at least attempted assault. That is at least attempted felony assault. At least, if not attempted murder. You fire into a park filled with people and you're wanted for reckless endangerment. And then you're going to tell me shootings are down. You're going to tell me murder's down. You can tell me we're making history in New York City. Nothing's changed since Ray Kelly. It's the same exact. The number game is always still there, and the police department is completely in a diminished state. I'm going to show you something that would never happen under Ray Kelly era style of policing, under the broken window style of policing with impact cops. And if it did happen, you wouldn't need to worry about it getting put out on social media because the guys in your command would make sure that you rethink the profession that you're in. You know, I'm going to show you this video. This is the exact of lax standards of, you know, let's just give everybody a break. Let's just, you know, let's just give them a warning. Let's just do this. This is exactly this. This shit should never happen. This is a disgrace what I watched yesterday. I got this so many times yesterday. I had to do a video about it because I was like, everyone's like, could you please talk about this? Could you please talk about this? Could you please talk about this? Look at this. Look at this. And FYI, these are cops that are sending this in the NYPD saying this is a disgrace. This is a disgrace. Here it is.
Bro, he looking gangster. Wait, maybe he's not a cop. Maybe he's perpetrating. Comic-Con. Yeah. Comic-Con?
Yo, give me a cup. Give me a cup. Give me a cup. I'm clearing. Yo, back up. Don't touch me. Back up.
I didn't touch you. I touched your hat.
Not a cop. Where you go? Give me your phone, nigga. Give me your phone. I'm not touching, bro.
You small as shit to be talking crazy. If you didn't have that gun, bro, I'll flip you like a tomato. Sounds good. Flip you like a tomato.
You guys are loving it out here, huh?
Hell yeah, I love you. I love you. I love your hat too.
Yo.
What you gonna do? You're not scaring nobody. Yeah, and I touch your hat. It feels good. It feels good. Hell yeah, I love it. I'm just dusting the dirt off. You
So no standard in uniform whatsoever. Goes out of the precinct to get a cup of coffee. The Yankee hat that he's wearing backwards, I see a ton of guys in neighborhood safety wearing Yankee hats and Mets hats with the dark blue. I see them all wearing these stupid hats backwards. I see a ton of cops wearing it. This kid leaves the precinct to go get a cup of coffee. Maybe he's got a collar. I don't know. But he's got his hat backwards. He's in full uniform. What that stupid sweater he's wearing, I don't know. I guess we authorize that now too, because we're kind of friendly at police department. And, hey, maybe he didn't have a dad, and we should really feel bad for him. So he should be able to dress the way that he wants. Goes out of the precinct with no radio, has zero situational awareness, goes to the corner store. This idiot, what's his name? Stitch the camera guy, who I have no idea why this kid hasn't been arrested 50 times and doesn't know that you can't touch cops and can't push cops. He comes out. They start talking smack to him immediately. He doesn't get off the phone. He doesn't put the coffee down. He just keeps walking, turns his back to them, keeps walking down to the block, where they start pushing him and bumping him. And the kid starts in a violent and tumultuous manner saying, "Give me your phone." What's that called, people? It's called attempted strong arm robbery. That's what that's called. It's a felony. He's trying to rob a police officer, bumping a police officer. The other one saying, "I'm going to flip you like a tomato. If you didn't have that gun, I'm going to flip you like a tomato." This kid walks in with his hat backwards, goes into the command and hides and drinks his coffee. What should have happened, and by the way, half of that video is cut off, because he probably edited it because there were probably other severe things he said that were actual crimes, and he was worried about posting it. So that's probably why that clip is short, even though what he just showed you is a crime right there. And he walks in and he never comes back out. That they should immediately walk back out. I don't care what the situation was. I don't care if he had 3 bodies, 7 bodies. I don't care what it is. He wanted to go home. He was on the phone with his girlfriend and his boyfriend. They were going to go out to dinner later. I don't care. You walk back out, you put those guys in handcuffs, and you bring them in. And this is the result of Bill Bratt. This is the result of we're gonna let everybody dress how they want, do what they want, be what they want. We're gonna give everybody discretion. Everything's okay. You could be your own cop. He used his discretion here. Oh, the DAs aren't gonna prosecute anyway. And it's disgusting. Like, I posted this and I get all these comments about the DAs, and I'm like, so why are you getting paid? Like that's it. Get rid of the police department then. Defund them. They're useless. Because is that the same thing you're going to say when someone breaks in my house, when someone breaks in my car, when someone robs me, when someone threatens my wife, my daughter, my mother? Is that the DAs? Well, all right, good. So then turn your badge and your gun in, and we don't need to pay you anymore, and I want my tax money back. That's it. That's it. Defund the police. If this is the style of policing that we're going to have, if this is the new kind of friendlier style of policing, what are we even doing anymore? Who is this guy helping when he can't stop himself from getting abused, getting harassed, getting pushed, getting touched, getting told that he's going to steal his phone? What are those two doing to just regular people walking down the street? Anything they want.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Why does he have his uniform on and he has a Yankee cap on? What are we doing here?
Because there's no discipline standards.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no, if this was in the Ray Kelly era, he would have been hammered for that uniform. No radio, no hat, improper style. He would have got like 4 CDs just for that one interaction, without that interaction dealing with getting abused on the street. I'm talking about he just walked out looking like that. That would never happen. Would have never happened without a radio.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, I agree with that. But again, I'm not going to praise the Kelly era. I agree things were more disciplined back then, and you had less leftist leadership at the top. There was less listening to those progressive women at the top. But again, the job was broken itself back then. We just weren't broken in this way. Now we have all the resources, well, a lot more resources, but the job is broken in the other way. Okay. And this is why I said those guys who threw up the gang sign. Now I'm not excusing if they're part of a gang. If they're part of a gang, then absolutely get them out of here. Okay. But I think it was that I don't think they were part of a gang. I think they were just doing something stupid because this is part of, again, gang culture is infiltrated because of rap, has infiltrated culture at large, right? I'm saying that you need to fix discipline of the entire job, because with if you fix discipline for the entire job, then you won't have incidents like this. You won't have incidents like people throwing up gang signs. And this discipline includes the top as well. How much times have we seen these chiefs doing something stupid? We see chiefs showing up at a press conference. You can barely read. You show up with your hat looking like you're a security guard. We see chiefs that look overweight and look like a fat slob in their uniform. So of course you're gonna get things like this. I mean, where was the boss at the desk to tell this guy, hey, get that hat off there? What are you doing? Okay, you have a problem with discipline that extends at the top of the NYPD, and it goes all the way down to the rookies in the academy. Okay, you cannot just tell these one or two young guys, hey, your hat, take off that stupid hat. Hey, stop flashing gang signs. You have to fix the organization. You can tell the cops stop throwing up the gang signs, but now you're gonna get other cops doing this stuff. And again, the other issue that I'll talk about as we go around is that guys don't want to arrest anybody anymore. Nobody seems to want to put in the work to be a cop anymore. Okay, because if I'm a cop, I see 2 hours of easy overtime that just bumped into me that I don't have to do much explaining. I could put my brain on automatic pilot, with that arrest. So,
Marlon, you said something interesting, right? You said, where's the desk? And John said something interesting also. He said, talking about the cops policing themselves. And that was something I learned in the Marine Corps. The best form of discipline is your peers. Right? When I was in the Marine Corps, they always preached to police your own, right? It was the Marines policed each other to make sure that you were squared away, make sure you had a good appearance. The same thing should happen with the police department. That's why I said it's so important. We lost those veterans that we had in the police department that were even more important than the supervisors. Why? Because if we had those veterans, they'd be like, yo, what are you doing, stupid? Put your hat forwards. You look silly. And so some people may disagree with me, but I'm actually more bothered by this than the picture with the gang signs. The reason why is because when I look at that picture with the gang signs, to me, it was most likely, based on my observations, a joke that was captured on camera that shouldn't have been. It looked like it was more of a joke than anything. If I'm wrong after an investigation and it turns out they're full-fledged gang members, well, then they should be disciplined, and if they're involved in a gang, should be terminated. But if it's just a picture they were joking around, I'm actually more bothered by this, because look at this kid. He's got his hat backwards. He's on the phone. He's really not a cop. He's wearing that uniform right now, but he's not a cop. He's not aware of his situation. He doesn't care. He's just wearing his hat backwards. He's completely ridiculed. And hey, maybe you don't care about your own self. Maybe you don't respect yourself. But he sure as hell doesn't respect every other police officer that has to walk on the street and all the police officers that came before him. That's why I said it's so important that we actually put an emphasis on the history, the legacy of the cops that died, that put their lives on the line and died to wear that uniform so that people are safe. And then you have this idiot here walking with his hat backwards on the phone, could care less. You're getting abused. This is an attempted robbery right here, and you don't make an arrest. Absolutely ridiculous. Right there and then, I'd be slapping cuffs on. But that's different. That's me, John, Marlon, our friends and listeners. We were real cops. This kid is not a cop. Let's be honest. And I don't know if you agree, but I'm far more bothered and perturbed by his actions than the guys in the picture. Because they may be good cops. I don't know. But based on my observations, it looks like they were just joking around. It was judgment. Not good for a picture out there.
Eric.
But this kid's not a cop. You got your hat backwards. You're on the phone. You got your coffee. Look, he's got a phone in one hand, coffee in the other, hat backwards. Could care less that he's getting abused. And reality is, it's not just you getting abused. Every other cop now is much more vulnerable because of people like him. This kid makes it more difficult because those kids now that are taunting him are emboldened to do it to other cops right now. Honestly, I'm more bothered. This is ridiculous. This is absolutely. This kid doesn't even deserve that uniform. That's why history is so important. I was a history major in college, because we honor the legacy. We honor the people that wore that patch, the cops that actually gave their lives to wear that uniform. And this kid just completely disgraced the uniform, disgraced the entire profession, and he doesn't even care. Whatever, get my coffee, got my hat backwards. And so, yeah, while there's emphasis where at the desk, where are the cops? The other cops are telling him, dude, you look like an idiot. You are stupid. But you don't have those cops anymore. John, you retired. Marlon, you got terminated. Me, I retired. We're gone. They don't have people because we would tell them, we would pull them aside like, dude, honestly, I would smack the hat off his head. John, Marlon, I bet you guys would do the same thing. Like, what are you doing? There's no better discipline than your peers. Policing your own. That is the best thing, and we lost that. It's better than any boss. Leadership is so important, but policing your own is so important, and it's gone. Gone.
Yeah, but we don't even police our own online. And honestly, I see zero difference between this and the gang photo. Zero. Like they're both part of the same.
I don't agree. Got to be honest. I don't agree with that.
They're both part of the same issue. There's no standards. There's no discipline. Everyone do what they want. The other guys got masks on. Like, where are we? What, you wearing masks now as cops? Like, what is that? You wearing like ski masks? Like you're about to do a robbery? This kid's got his hat backwards.
That's what I agree.
There's zero discipline, dude. There's zero discipline. There's zero disciplinary standards. I agree with you guys. It starts at the top, but that's ultimately the entire problem we're talking about. And now you have a whole apathetic generation of cops. My boss isn't going to like it when I bring the collar in. He would be mad at me for bringing that collar in. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I've brought in hundreds of collars. I've never one time had a desk officer be happy that I brought that in. There was never one time that I had a desk officer happy. Matter of fact, when I was a sergeant and my guys brought in hundreds of collars, there was never a time where the desk or the lieutenant was happy that we brought people in. There was never one time. It never happened. I never had, oh, yeah, that's awesome. You're bringing all these guys in that are going to give us problems. It's the nature of the job. Nothing's changed. Oh, the DAs aren't going to prosecute it. Okay. The DAs never prosecute. It's New York City. Nothing's changed. Not like, it's changed for the worse, but it's not much different. It's the same shit. You make a collar. Nobody cares about it. Everyone wants to downplay what happened. Nobody cares what's going on. Oh, whatever. Who cares? What's the big deal? It is what it is. Everybody's a perp. What are you going to do? Nobody cares. And like, this is the result of that apathy. It's the same shit. It's all apathy. It's all apathy amongst the top of coming down, and then it spreads throughout the entire generation. And now you have cops that when people come up to report crimes to them, they're telling them, "Nah, we can't really do nothing because the DA is not going to draw it up, or my sergeant doesn't want me to bring it in at the desk." What? So you let yourself get pushed. You let yourself get touched. You let someone threaten to steal your phone. Let me see your phone. Let me see your phone. Let me see your phone. As he's bumping you. I mean, are you like, come on. This is a simple arrest here, bro. Like, look, what's the top charge here? It's real simple. It's attempted robbery. Is your boss going to let you charge it? Probably not. So I'm a realist. OGA, Discon, they're 100% going to resist when you come back out of the precinct with other people. I'm not telling you to be Superman and start locking them up right there, but you're not even keeping yourself safe. You're getting followed out. You're getting bumped out. You got your hand in. You got one hand on the phone, the other hand holding your coffee, and you're still talking on the phone, dude. Like you don't even realize what you did. And the other thing is like walking out of that precinct without your radio is some dumb shit, bro. Because you could have got killed in that store and nobody would have known about it until they were coming to get your dead body. You could have got killed and they could have walked in and offed you in that store. Nobody's afraid. You're not safe because you're near the precinct. You never leave that precinct without a radio. I don't care if you're in plainclothes, if you're in whatever. You're on duty. You have that radio with you. And again, I think it's the same thing. That photo never happens, and that never happens in the Ray Kelly era. Neither of those things happen. Hold if they do, there's serious discipline.
I got a question. Let's be honest. This is why I say I think discipline should be proportionate. My opinion, and that's why I value both your opinions. My opinion, this kid with the hat backwards, with the phone in his hand and a cup of coffee, is far more egregious than these other kids. I'm not saying those other kids are free from discipline. I said it shouldn't be harsh if it's just a joke. But my opinion, this kid with the hat is far more egregious. Or do you think it's the same?
I think it's the same thing. There's zero standards. I think that they both need. I think that the only way you're going to bring an organization as large as the NYPD back into compliance, the only way you're going to have cops look uniformed is if there are uniform standards, and there's uniform standards for how you act on duty, how you act off duty, and how you dress and carry yourself on duty. The only way to do that is through discipline.
Well, I listen, I agree. There should be discipline, but discipline, in my opinion, is at different levels. And I think that you're right. There's no accountability, but it shows.
If anything, the gang's much worse. This kid embarrassed himself. This kid embarrassed himself. Those kids embarrassed the entire department.
I understand what you're saying, but I think this, my opinion, I think this is far more egregious and actually makes the cops more unsafe, because the picture with the cops could very well be a joke. We know that could be very well be a joke that gone wrong. But I think what this kid did is far more egregious. It's my opinion. I mean, like I said, some people are going to agree with you, some will agree with me, but that's my opinion. I think there has to be accountability, but I think discipline has to be proportional. I don't think these kids should face the same discipline. I'm actually more perturbed by the kids wearing a mask than those stupid gang signs, because I think they were joking around with the gang signs, but them being masked up, I'm actually more perturbed by that, because it shows you clearly there's just absolutely zero uniform standards. But I respect your opinion, I do. But ultimately, I agree. There has to be standards, but there is no standards. Let me look at our professionalism we have by the leadership. How can we have, how do we discipline anymore? Because the leadership is not held accountable. But yeah, we're so hard on these guys. I mean, who are they learning from? It's terrible. I mean, and clearly it's obviously it's not an isolated incident. It's one after another. It's TikTok videos. It's this kid with his hat backwards. It's these kids with the gang signs. I think the department is just broken.
Yeah, it absolutely is broken. I mean, and also, we don't know what unit this guy is in, right? But keep in mind, the public safety guys run around looking not too dissimilar from that.
I think he's in a public safety guy. I'm telling you, I think he has a collar, and I think he's a public safety guy, and I think that's why he's back. But I think he goes out on the streets in New York with that stupid Yankee hat backwards, because I've seen a ton of them doing it. I've seen a ton of them doing it. And what are you doing? Just because you're in public safety, either let them be in plain clothes and wear the Yankee hat backwards, or that's it, or have a uniform standard. I know they're hard workers and you don't want to clip their wings, but I mean, it's honestly, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous to me. And that's how you get guys throwing up gang signs on and thinking it's cool.
Jason, who's a friend in the chat here, he's a friend to Network. Hey, brother, I don't understand how you're being so righteous here. He says, Eric, what's the joke? I'm not understanding. You never joked around with perps. I joked around with perps plenty of time. Joke around, right? And that's also how I knew sometimes if shit was going down. If there were perps on the street, I locked up often. If I stopped and they were joking around with me and we said funny stuff to each other, I knew everything was cool. But if I pulled up and those same perps didn't talk to me and they gave me that cold shoulder, I'm like, something was wrong. Something's going on here. So you tell me you didn't joke around with the perp? I'm not saying I threw up gang signs, but you never joked around and did something where maybe it could have been misconstrued. I think some people are being a little righteous here. I think.
Wait. Hold on, though. Hold on. You're completely downplaying this, dude. You didn't end up on the front cover of the paper when you messing around. They did.
They did. No, I agree.
And they embarrassed the whole department.
They did.
And if the same would have been happened to you, you would have had to pay a price.
Listen, I'm not excusing it, but what I'm saying is, what is the difference between some girl that's doing dance videos all day from these guys? The difference is the symbolism of the gang signs, which only means something if you have to understand it. If these cops may not even understand the symbolism of the gangsters, they may not. We don't know until the investigation plays out. Is it stupid? Yes, I'm not excusing them. Not excusing them at all. But what I'm saying is, it was dumb, and they got cool camera. They do everything on camera. This is the social media culture of the job. First of all, there's plenty of executives and chiefs. They do everything on camera. They can't walk 2 feet without taking a picture with the community people without doing something. They're just lucky they didn't get on camera doing something stupid. Half of them were taking pictures promoting the masks and taking pictures with people to show that they were wearing the mask. So, I think it's stupid, but they may very well be joking around, and I think it's a teacher moment. Like you will, yes. Did they embarrass the entire police department? Yes, because look, we're able to have an almost 2-hour conversation about a 1-second picture.
But Reagan brings up a good point. He says, I think only certain cops can throw up gang signs and get away with it. And it's a great point, dude, because we're making excuses for them. And if it was white kids and they threw up a KKK symbol and it wasn't the one that went viral where it was ridiculous, they said that if you say okay, it's you're a white supremacist. If they actually did something associated with a gang, they would be terminated, and that would be the end of the story. So I mean, I don't look. I don't care. I don't care if they did it. If they did it on purpose and they're a member of gangs, obviously they should be fired. If they did it joking around, there needs to be serious discipline because this shit ain't funny. It's not funny. You ended up on the front cover of the paper. You embarrassed yourself, you know, and you made the job. You brought all of this heat not only on you but on the entire job. And embarrass them even further than they continue to embarrass yourself. You know, and the same shit with this. I think it's the same thing. I think it all just shows there's no leadership at the top. There's no one team mission. There's no strategy, you know. And what are they going to do? They're going to leave these guys alone. And they're going to go after the patrol cops. They're going to go after the guys that are out on details all summer sweating their ass off, 12-hour tours with no RDOs, right? You're going to do all that. You're going to abuse the inside guy because he went inside after 22 years, even though he has 700 collars. Yeah, guy's a zero, Mo. You know who's the good cop? The kid with 6 months on that's out there with his Yankee hat backwards getting abused by this idiot on the camera. That's the real cops. Those are the real police. It's like, yeah, okay.
Listen, you know, I agree. The picture's not funny. It's quite disturbing seeing that picture of the gang signs. But what I'm saying is ultimately the system is broken. How do we hold these kids accountable? Like, you know what? They should be disciplined. And then we have the first deputy commissioner who can't monitor overtime. We have we have Richie Taylor who had an excessive amount of overtime and all he has to do is pay it back. So, like, there's zero standards. Yep. Which one is worse? One guy stole from the police department, has to give it back. This guy took a stupid picture. Like ultimately, which one's worse? I'm not saying either one is acceptable, but what are the standards? What are the standards? We have none. So, if we revert back to, well, Marlon, I agree, Kelly wasn't perfect, but if we could revert back to the Kelly era today, I would, only because it would eradicate all this bullshit.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to give Eric a spot on myself for today because I think he's right, and I have the same opinion.
Thanks,
you know, I think this is absolutely worse than the gang signs. I'm sorry. I mean, if these guys,
we're already okaying the gang signs, and you think you're not gonna get cops walking around with their hats backwards, getting abused, doing whatever they want. There's no standard, dude, and you guys aren't trying to reel it in. Like that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Well, no. Well, I'm simply all I said was we don't have standards and we can't piecemeal discipline. We need
Sure, we can. You brought it on yourself. You ended up on the front page of the paper. We're not piecemealing shit. I'm not just turning around saying, "Oh, look at these kids." No. Oh, you ended up on the front page of the paper. Okay, you're the example now. You ended up in Stitch's camera, dressed like an idiot and not doing the right thing. Okay, yeah, no, I'm 100% piecemealing it because that's the only way to address the issues that you're facing is as they arise.
No,
you're going to go backwards to the academy and excuse all the nonsense that's happening on the street? No, you go backwards on the academy and you hold the people accountable on the street.
No, what I'm saying is Kelly's style of discipline. It seemed to me back in the Kelly days that if you ended up in a paper for doing something stupid, you get disciplined, right?
100%.
Well, and again, the problem I had with that is that you had other problems in the department, you know? And sometimes
you're always going to have other problems.
It's like going over the deep end, you know, with the discipline. All I'm simply saying here is that you have an entire organization that's broken. You know, Eric just brought up those examples. You know, you can't discipline these guys and not fix the other problems. I want the entire department.
No more discipline in the NYPD then.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that these guys.
Yeah, that's exactly what you're saying, dude.
Stupid. No,
you're saying you can't discipline these guys until you fix all the other problems in the department.
Well,
so that anybody could do whatever they want.
No. Well, listen. What we're saying is, what's discipline here? They're gonna get a CD. Okay, CD. Fine. Get the CD. Go back to work. I'm not transferring these guys to like the far end of the city for that. You know, I need more than just throwing up gang signs on on camera that was misinterpreted as them being gang members. I need some more than that. Okay, I'm simply saying that you
I
have
don't need anything more than that.
the job. What the
You're
job
a
will do
police
is discipline
officer.
these guys and then
You're
do
a
nothing to
police
fix the other
officer,
problem.
and you thought it was smart to take a photo and throw a gang sign. I don't need any more than that.
No, but I'm a different generation. You see, we're a different generation than
I'm
these
not
kids.
excusing any generation
Yeah.
because we've all dealt with the same societal issues throughout time, just in different forms.
I don't think Marlon's excusing at all. I think what Marlon and I are both saying, and we're both in an agreement that there has to be a system in place. And Mike Marino, who I respect very much, makes a great point. He says, Marlon, you have to start somewhere. And I agree. And that somewhere, I believe, starts with the top. And so, and for instance, and that's why I made that comparison, Richie Taylor is at the top. I mean, the allegations are that he stole hours. He's basically, and hours are equivalent to money. And yet he's not held accountable for it. He just has to give it back. So while I don't excuse the gang signs, I don't excuse that either. And so, yes, we have to start somewhere. I believe it starts at the top. And if it starts at the top and we actually start to have discipline run through the police department, then we won't have pictures of cops with gang signs. We won't have a cop walking around his hat backwards, holding a cup of coffee on the phone. We have no more standards anymore. We went from, such harsh discipline in the Kelly era that people walked around afraid. And I don't think it should be that harsh either because it was too much micromanagement, but at least it was better than this version. But the version that we have here is there's zero standards. That's why I say Richie Taylor's not held accountable. But yet these kids are, everyone's ready to discipline them. I agree. If we're going to, it should be proportionate. What is the discipline they should get in comparison to what Richie Taylor should get?
Yeah, I agree. And just to go back to this kid now, the reason I think it's worse is because discipline can be fixed. You can't fix cowardice. You can't fix. I mean, come on now. You got guys like bullying a cop.
Sure, you can.
You can fix cowardice with.
I could fix gang activity. I could fix cowardice. I could fix all that stuff because when you're more worried about the discipline that's going to come down, and we've seen it here, you have cops that are more afraid of CCRB, and they'll go out there and risk their lives to not get a CCRB, and they'll put their lives in danger. You could 100%, because they're afraid of the discipline from CCRB. You could 100% fix cowardice with discipline. They do it in the military all the time. Well, there has to be a standard, dude. There has to be.
You can't fix cowardice with policy. What you end up getting is low-hanging fruit enforcement. The rookie who's afraid to get yelled at because he didn't come in with 2 C's is now going to go find dad riding his bike on the sidewalk or grandma riding his bike on the sidewalk.
I never said anything about numbers. I'm saying about you're not going to embarrass the fucking department. You're not going to embarrass yourself. And you're going to be more scared of what the cops and your supervisors are going to say by seeing you act that way on that video than you are about what's happening in front of your face right then and there. Dude, if I'm just letting you know, like if that would have happened when we were cops, you would have got abused. You would have got abused. You would have went into work the next day and there was no video and they would have made it much worse than it actually was. And you would have got abused. Everybody would have abused you. The cops, you would have got talked to by your sergeant. Other bosses that don't even know you would have grabbed you. Like I'm sorry. Like it's not like this is all a result of there's a lack of discipline in the New York City Police Department. There's a lack of standard in the New York City Police Department. And I get it should start at the top, but it's never gonna. So that's why
I said we police our own, which I agree. You police your own. That's the best form of discipline, policing your own. That's what you're saying. The cops would abuse you. You don't have those veteran cops anymore. Could you imagine? Could you imagine we wore a hat backwards like that with Dennis Myra and John Fitzgibbons? They would have laughed at us. We would have abused.
Yeah, there's 2 problems there.
Well, we also would have got CDs.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. Keep in mind,
and you'd be on a change of assignment and a lot of other things.
You'd be walking around by 55 Holland by yourself.
But
dude, we went to a burglary call, 31, an active burglary, got the perp. My friend lost his radio and he got a fucking 10-day rip for catching a burglar. Come on, dude. Like, this is what it was. Like, you know what I mean? I'll tell you what, he never lost another fucking radio ever again. And those things fall all the time. You know,
Yeah.
You know, there's one thing here I really agree with Marlon. And Marlon, I'm sorry we keep cutting you off. I apologize.
No.
There was cowardice when we were on the job too. And I think the difference is we were able to kind of like hide and be unnoticed because we had so much more manpower that the cowards were kind of like protected, and those weak links were not as exposed as they are right now. Now, because the department is so diminished, that these cowards that are on the job and those that are, weak links, they get exposed. That's my opinion in comparison. Because let's be honest, we did have cowards. Not everybody was held their own and stood their own ground, but they kind of like they got disguised because we policed our own, and they kind of like, I guess they kind of got lost in translation. I think it's much different now. These guys, there's such a short-handed police department, they get exposed. Do you agree, Marlon, with that? I think that's kind of like, I think we always had cowards.
Well, we always did, but I'm saying that this has gone over the deep end. When you got a guy, you see his friend like shouldering the cop. I'm like, how is that? Look, my problem is you can't you cowardice. There's no policy. I don't see a policy fixing that problem. I think that perp should have been in handcuffs. Okay, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And to go back on the discipline again. Now, I just don't agree with giving a cop a 10-day hit for losing his radio on a burglary. That's some of that Kelly stuff that really pissed me off, especially if it's an active cop who's doing the job. Shit happens. Okay, if I'm a CO, I'm not signing off on that. Shit happens. You have to measure the shit that happens with the record of the cop. If it's an active guy and something happens, you need to let some things you just need to let it go without warning and admonish, because that guy is an active cop. Shit happens. Okay, shit happens. Now, if it's a lazy cop, okay, a guy who looks like a slob, his paperwork looks like a slob, he's not doing there's no activity, then it's different. Okay, then it's different. Okay, and certainly the guy's been warned before about the stupid shit that he's doing. It's different. Okay, I'm just not a big fan of like this Kelly discipline where that deters it. What it does is it destroys morale, and the morale in the Kelly era was kind of in the dirt too. Okay, but it was in the dirt the other way because we had things like this overreaching discipline, and I'm just not a fan of that either. I don't think that fixes the problems.
I just want to say to JDP 0704, is that it? It says exactly, Marlon, which is why discipline is piecemeal. No, I don't agree. I think discipline should be proportionate to the action, right? And what is the impact, right? So what is the impact of those two cops with those gang signs in comparison to the guy with the hat backwards? Is the two cops with the gang signs, it's embarrassment to the police department. It shows, is there a lack of standards? Is there a lack of investigations? It's a huge impact, right? It's more of an embarrassment, and it's about the optics. But when it comes to that cop with his hat backwards and he's on the phone and the coffee's in his hand, I think the impact actually makes the cops in much more vulnerable positions. I mean, listen, honestly, John, I get it. I know what you're saying. You don't have to be a hero, but there's no way. I don't care if there's four guys. I don't care if I'm off duty. There's no way four guys are approaching me, even if I know I'm getting my ass kicked. I'm not letting four guys get up on me and grab my hat. There's no way. You know why? Because I love myself. I have pride and I have dignity. What happened to pride and dignity? You know what? You wear a goddamn uniform, and that's why it's important to understand the history. You should have pride and dignity. And you should not let those guys in your space and touching you. Drop that cup of coffee. Have some self-awareness. Turn that hat forwards. I'm not saying that the hat changes everything, but there is a lot of symbolism to that also. When I was in the Marine Corps, they used to make you wear your hat so low. And the reason why was so that you walk with your head straight up and you had good posture and you kind of look like a badass. And it's important because presence is important. Your hat backwards like that, you look stupid. You don't look like a badass. They don't even take you serious, and that's why they do it. So I think that impact has far more repercussions, it does, in the vulnerability on the cops today than it does with those two idiots taking a picture with gang signs, and they're not even doing the gang signs right. I looked at those gang signs, not even right. They both have implications for the police department, but a different impact. What do you think, John? I think you're going to say it's the same.
I already said it. I said the gang sign has a much worse impact overall.
You got to be a little more malleable.
Yeah, I disagree
Come
with
on,
that.
It
man.
has a much worse impact overall. They ended up on the front cover of the paper. The other idiot didn't, but they're both part of the same problem. It's all stemming from the same problem. You got an allegation now. Cop just got modified yesterday for getting in the back seat of like a girl's car, driving around, supposedly jerked off in the back seat. I don't even know, like some crazy shit. She's making all these allegations against them. I don't know if it's true. I don't know if it isn't. I don't know what's reality, what's not, right? But I know this. I know that if you had strict standards on holding people accountable, like, yo, if I ever see you with a girl in your car, or I ever see you in a girl's car in uniform, you got a big problem. I know that alleviates that idiot from getting caught in a situation where he's either going to do something stupid or he's going to have false allegations made against him. You know, I know that the fear of that will alleviate a lot of things. You know, I already said I was a bad kid. The only thing that kept me in line is that there was a heavy police presence in all of my neighborhoods. And that omnipresent kept me straight for a lot of my life. Then when I came into the police department, there was like a heavy disciplinary style. I was still going out to bars. What did I start doing? I stopped going out to bars because I was like, I'm not going to bars. I'm not getting fist fights. You know, I'm not doing it. I'm not going out. I don't want to run into these kids. I don't want to run over there. I don't care. You know, and that carried me forever. I changed my lifestyle to conform to the New York City Police Department. And I only changed my lifestyle to conform to the New York City Police Department because I wanted to keep that job. And I knew that if I did the things that I did growing up, I was not going to keep that job. And right now, these kids could do whatever they want and they have no fear of losing the job because there's zero discipline starting from the bottom all the way up to the top.
But John, were you really a bad kid or more mischievous? I
wasn't even a bad kid, dude.
I don't think you were a bad kid. You were more mischievous.
But I wasn't a bad kid. But like, look, I went into you know how many? I don't even want to get into it. But like, I don't even want to get into it. But do you know how many times like you would go to a bar and somebody starts a fight with you? Like I was never looking for a fight. I never wanted to get into a fight with anybody. I never liked fighting. I wanted to go out to meet girls. I didn't want to go there and see dudes. So I really didn't hang out. I keep saying bars, but I really hated bars because those were the biggest issues for me. I'm like, I'm going to go there. There's a bunch of dudes there. They get drunk. They're all sexually frustrated because they can't get laid. And then next thing they want to have like who's things bigger party. And like, I was never into that. You know what I mean? I would go to a bar. There's a bunch of dudes. I'm out of there. I'll be there for like 3 minutes. I won't even bother getting a drink. Like, yo, what's up? All right. Yeah. I'm out. Peace. I'm going where the girls are. But like what I'm saying is you go out and you put yourself in these scenarios, bad things happen, and you're going to be looked at as the asshole. You can't say that it wasn't you. Like I said, I got arrested twice for things I didn't do. What did I ultimately have to do to get on the police department? Yeah, I did it. I made a mistake. I'm better now. I lied. I didn't do anything wrong. A cop flaked me, and the other thing, the kids did. The older kids did it. I had nothing to do with it. And I just got arrested. But I had to sit there and say, yeah, no, this, that, the other thing. Now I'm a police officer. I go out to a bar. I start talking to a girl. A guy pops me over the head with a bottle from behind me or sucker punches me or I get jumped. What the hell did I do wrong? Nothing. But I'm going to lose that job. Today, I don't think there's a fear of any of that. I really don't. I don't think that. Yeah, I'll just hang out with this girl while I'm on duty in uniform. Yeah. I'll just throw up gang signs with my friend. Yeah. I'll just walk out of the precinct with no radio and I dress with my hat backwards, my Yankee hat on, and I get bumped and I'm gonna go viral on social media. But you know, who cares? You know.
Well, who enabled all of that? You know, keep in mind the guy who's alleged to be in the back of that car with the female is in the CRT, right? And keep in mind, like we said before, the public safety or whatever it's called now, those guys run around with NYPD uniforms and they hat to the back. What are you, crime? Or are you plainclothes crime or are you not? Okay, which one is it? Who enabled all of that to happen? The job did. Okay, the job enables CRT guys to feel like they're the cream of the crop and they can do whatever the hell they want and not get disciplined at the same level at the NYPD. Now, don't get me wrong. I believe that there's certain things that you can excuse if a guy is very active. One example, I've mentioned this before. I had one time I went to investigations at the borough. It wasn't my perp. It wasn't my stop. But yet the sergeant was grilling me for 30 minutes when the cop who it was their stop, he just went in and out for 10 minutes. He knew him, right? And I got pissed. I was already dealing with a lot of stress at the time there, but I got pissed and I pushed back against him. And he was upset about that. And he then goes back to my inspector. At the time, it was Inspector Lott. So shout out to Inspector Lott. He later on became a chief. And he didn't. He just wanted to admonish me. He didn't. In fact, he didn't even give me anything for that. He said I'm not doing anything for that because he knew me and he knew I was a hard worker. So I do believe that discipline needs to be proportionate, but there's a line you don't want to cross, and the CRT guys clearly have a line that the job has allowed them to cross when you see guys stepping on guys' heads or killing. We've talked about all these issues before, but my point here is that the job enabled all of this that we're seeing. Okay. It's a problem not just for the individual cops doing it. It's a problem that the job itself put into place. And this is the reason why the job will never call us back, because we're not the type of cops who you're not going to scream at me and go touching me and go shouldering me and not think that I'm not going to have you down in handcuffs in 2 minutes. Okay. I don't care what size you are, but the job doesn't want that anymore. Okay. The job is a kinder, softer, gentler job, and who's babied these guys who've already been babied for 20, 25 years, or have never been disciplined at home for 20, 25 years. So it's the job that's doing this. We need to fix the job in order to solve these problems. Otherwise, all we're doing is piecemealing, discipline here, discipline there, but the problem is not solved, and you're going to get more of these incidents in the paper and on social media, especially considering how big social media is now and how much of these perps love cloud chasing on social media by getting into incidents with cops.
Marlon, I gotta say, man, spot on. That's well said. I agree with you. I think it's not about being a tough guy. Because listen, I trained my whole life, boxing, MMA, jiu-jitsu, but I don't care who you are. You're not beat up for guys. I'll hold my own. I'll try to get one good, but I'm not going to beat up 4 guys. But if 4 guys surround me and start knocking my hat off, I have pride and dignity that I'd rather die than stand there and get abused, especially being a cop. Like, I would think to myself, and that's why history is so important. No way. I'm representing all these cops that walked and died and served in this uniform, the history of the police department. There's no way I'm standing for it. If it means an ass kicking, yeah, I'm going down with dignity and pride. They don't have that anymore. There's no more self-respect. There's no more within the police department. Talk about morale, the camaraderie, the self-respect, the dignity for the police department's gone. Cops are not wearing that patch saying, wow, this is the go to police, and I'm the NYPD. I was talking to a guy the other day in Nevada, actually. I'm out in Nevada right now. And the guy's like, man, when we think of the NYPD, we once thought when you see things happen, like that wouldn't happen to the NYPD. But now it's totally different. Like there was pride and dignity. And yes, sometimes you're going to get an ass kicking, but you put that uniform on. That says a lot. It means that you are willing to represent the people of New York City. And that means you're going to get your ass kicked. Well, that's part of it. I'm not saying you should walk out there stupidly, but sometimes you are going to be in a vulnerable position. It's really stupid. And that's why I think that the cop with the hat backwards, with the phone in the hand and the cup of coffee, it really makes a huge impact. It makes it bad for the next police officers, because hopefully those idiots, when they approach the next police officer, hopefully those police officers are outliers and stand their ground. I hope so. And the reality is, those cops that stand their ground, they will end up getting with a civilian complaint. But so what? At least you stood your ground. And that's important. So Sleepy Joe says, do you have a command log in the RV? That's pretty funny. I should get one. But yeah, I mean, listen, I think standards are so important. It's so sad that we lost the culture of the job. We lost that pride. We lost that identity. And John, I really don't think you were a bad kid. I thought you were mischievous from what you say. And I think that what you learned as a kid has made you so much better. And it's important to have, people like you that had those experiences that actually got arrested and then understand how, the reflection of the police department, your lens is so important. It's very important. It's valuable, and and there's people that learn from it. Like you said, you also learn that you were in situations, you worked out, you were in good shape, and that might have been like negative attention, and you knew not to put yourself in those situations. But the cops they're not aware of that. There's no one teach them like and we say it's common sense, but apparently it's not that common because we see stupid TikTok video after TikTok video. We see this kid with his hat backwards, like an idiot, potentially a guy masturbating in a car. Who knows if that's true or not, but it's one thing after another. And you would hear crazy things at the time when we were on the job, but not like this. It's every day there's something that happens. It shows you the entire police department is broken. And the question is, how do we fix it? And I'm a firm believer it starts with the top. And unless you fix it, this is going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that's it. I don't really got much more on this topic. I think it's all part of the same problem. I do. I think everything that we've been talking about, it's all part of the same problem. Lack of standards in hiring, lack of grooming standards, lack of standards on the job. And honestly, I think there's no way you're going to fix the top. It just is what it is. It's politically motivated. They're politically driven. But the way you could stop the police department from getting embarrassed is handling these situations as they arise. And so like, that's just my last thing. Like it came up. It is what it is. You messed up. Now you got to own it. You took the job. You're a police officer. These are the standards. You're front page of the paper. It is what it is. Like, and that's it. I don't have much more on this. You guys got anything else on this before?
No, I just want to say I think it's hilarious that Juju became such a fanboy for Sal Greco. Didn't Sal Greco sue you? I think it's hilarious, by the way. I know it's completely off topic, but I just think this is hilarious. Juju, I don't know, man. It's pretty funny. You're a fanboy for us, and you're a fanboy for Sal Greco. Outstanding.
Yeah, I just hope the job doesn't do something stupid like we know they're gonna do, which is gonna be like sending inspections over to the Midtown South now, as though that fucking solves anything.
100% they're gonna, and they should though, dude. Like they should. Like, what do you mean that doesn't solve anything? Should you let guys walk around with backwards Yankee hats?
No,
come on, dude.
No,
like you brought heat on. No. You brought heat on yourself, dude.
Yeah,
you brought heat on the command. Like there has to be. You're not ever fixing anything with saying, "Oh, I'm going to start at the top and I'm going to ignore everything that's happening." 100% inspections should be at Midtown North. 100%, and the supervisors should be held accountable for their inaction.
Yes,
if you can't police your own command, we'll police it for you. That's the mentality, and that shit has to happen to stay on there. And again, I'm not saying that kid needs to turn around and fight right there. I'm not. You could be smarter. You could say, "Oh, all right, I'm going to walk in the command and you'll walk back out with 4 guys." Okay, now you're all under arrest, tough guy. You like bumping into me? Now you're spending the night in jail. You know what I mean? Like, but that didn't happen. You got yourself to home base and that didn't happen. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying you get caught in a bad situation, you get caught off guard, whatever. Shit happens. But at least go back and make the arrest. 100% there should be a spotlight on that command. 100%.
Yeah,
right,
but
I agree. Sorry, Mullen, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that that goes back to the Kelly thing, that I have an issue with.
Mullen, you're painting a picture of zero standards here, bro.
No, I'm not.
Want cops to hold each other accountable. They're only going to hold each other accountable when there's consequences for action. This kid gets penalized himself. Then the inspections comes in, and then everyone in the command's like, "Don't do that shit again." Because if we do that shit again, we're going to get more of this bullshit. They deserve it. They deserve it. I'm sorry. Bring it on yourself. You bring it on yourself. It honestly, it works. There's no other way to do it.
That affects morale, and I'm not going to destroy morale.
But here's
there is no morale. Morale's gone.
But here's the reality. Stand so that cop, if he didn't have his hat backwards, he's not holding a cup of coffee, and the phone is in his hand, those guys don't approach him and try to abuse him.
Exactly.
Because if you actually had a good presence, that wouldn't even happen. They're not doing that to you, John. They're not doing that to me. They're not doing that to Mullen.
No way.
They're not doing it to us. We're not walking around with a cup of coffee with a phone in our hand.
I'm going to see him while I'm standing at the counter and I'm going to be approaching him. What's up?
It
You
ain't
guys
happened.
all right? You guys all right?
But that's
Everything
but that's-
okay? You guys take your medicine today? Everything okay? You need me to get an ambulance for you? What's going on? Everything all right? You seem
Listen,
like you're out of whack.
I get it. I know you're saying, but John, you tell me. I know you said you always should have your radio. You never walked out to the store to get a cup of coffee. I plenty of times I walked. I was, guys are doing arrests, well, a bunch
Of
of
course
people.
I did. Of course I did.
But so I'm saying, I walked out plenty of times, walking blocks away in the hood, getting coffee. I have no gun on me, no radio, nothing. Plenty of times I left with no gun, no radio, and no one said boo to me because I had a presence. It wasn't like I'm not going to beat up 10 guys, but they knew I had a presence. This kid in uniform with a gun has no presence. If he doesn't have his phone in his hand, he doesn't have his cup of coffee and his hat backwards, that doesn't happen.
Yeah, spot on. No, look, I'm just saying that whole flooding with inspections, that's bullshit. It destroys morale. What I do, I have a meeting with the supervisors and the CO, okay? And I put them under the spotlight because, again, you're the supervisor. You let the cop walk out there with looking like that. You got to set discipline. And I'm a firm believer that these COs should be treated like adults and be allowed to have a certain amount of command over their own commands. And I'm not going to destroy morale any more than the NYPD. The morale's already in the tank, right? So what I do is I have a meeting with the CO, with the supervisors, and tell them that they better, that if I see more of this, I'll empty the whole command. But
Not working.
Neither will inspections.
100% does.
Morale.
100% morale. Wait, where is there morale in the New York City Police Department? Can you name a unit? We haven't had morale in the New York City Police Department since 2013.
What is that word you speak of?
Yeah, morale. What are you talking about?
Well,
Dude,
yeah, but I mean, I don't want to destroy it any further.
So then you have cops with backwards hats. You have cops throwing gang signs, and we'll just say, it's all right. It's all
No,
good.
I come down on supervisors.
You have
supervisors.
Nobody did anything. There's no discipline to discipline the supervisor over. FYI, when you call inspections, what happens is when your guys get CDs for bullshit, so do the bosses. Oh, you guys turn them out? Oh, all right. You turn them out like that? Okay, you're getting a CD. You're getting a CD too. And the reason that's done is because the CO doesn't want to clip your wings. That's why they do it like that. Because the CO still wants to be your friend, and he wants to say, all right, Marlon, look, it happened. Don't worry about it. Those guys are out there. Make sure you're doing the right thing, blah, 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 blah. And the other breath, as soon as you walk out, he's like, yeah, if those guys are wearing fucking hats, give them CDs, and I'm going to take fucking 5 days from them. And he hangs up the phone. That's why that happens, dude. It has to happen, bro. It has to happen.
Yeah, but I'm simply saying I give the supervisor first. Okay, I let them.
But there's nothing for you to give the supervisor for. If you don't discipline the cop, you can't discipline the supervisor. Wait, you're disciplining me for what he did, but he's not getting disciplined?
Well, what if you show up at roll call and
showed up? I'm just telling you right now. If you came to me and you were like, "All right, Lou, you're getting a CD because Marlon had his backwards hat on." Okay, no problem. Hey, Marlon, guess what? You're getting a fucking CD because you got a backwards hat on. Oh, and you're getting a CD for being out with your radio, and you're getting a CD for that, and you're getting a CD for this. Mm-hmm. So you could ultimately, what you're saying is ultimately going to lead to more problems. You're going to come after the bosses. They're just going to come down on the cops harder.
Well, hold on a minute. There's one thing you said, and I think, when Maul and I are talking about this, I don't think, and yourself, I don't think any of us are saying that we're giving the kids a pass for showing gang signs or the guy having the hat back.
Marlon 100% is.
No, Maul's not giving him a pass.
I'm not. I'm absolutely.
Maul's not giving him a pass.
Give them a talking to.
Well, we're gonna have an investigation why they did that, and if it's just a joke, they may get a CD which is warned and admonished, but I'm not gonna give them highway therapy for that. I mean,
I didn't say highway therapy.
I need more than that to do that.
I didn't even say change an assignment. I said serious discipline. They will know to never do that again. When you get 10 vacation days and a BCD, you're never going to do that again.
No, that's too much for me.
You think
That's
10
much.
vacation days for that picture?
Yeah.
Honestly,
I think that's easy.
I don't agree.
Dude,
what if it's just a joke?
First of all, it's termination worthy. That's first off. Let's get.
I don't agree with that matrix at all.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm not talking about the Matrix. I'm talking about historically. You took a picture throwing a gang sign in the NYPD. You're getting fucking terminated, bro.
Your comparison to you're making the comparison to the cop that we know.
Yeah, you're getting terminated.
Well, hold on. I'm going to ask you this. I guess you said it. I mean, I personally think that 10 vacation days is egregious if it's just a joke, especially in the social media era. I think that it's egregious. Should it be addressed? Yes. But 10 vacations? If they lose 10 vacations, that guy with the hat backwards with the phone in the hand and the coffee, he should be suspended and lose 30 days. And that's why I say by proportionate, because I think that one is far more egregious.
I think I think you're looking at it. You're looking at it from what annoys you more than what affected the job more.
Yeah, I think the guy with the hat
cover the paper. One guy ended up on Stitch, the camera guy's fucking social media page.
Well, hold on. But now you're talking about optics. What affects? I care more about the cop's safety. I think the one with the gang signs is optics, but they think the other one makes the cops more unsafe.
You're throwing a gang sign so now you're portraying members of the NYPD as part of one crew, which could potentially cost the life of another officer because now they think all cops are associated with that one crew.
Oh, that's a great point. I think that's a fantastic point. That's the optics. But my perception is that there is. It could be more. There could be some more correction behind it. It could be, especially with the press conference, if they say it was AI or was a joke or we determine they're gang members, they've been terminated. But the cop with the hat backwards, that has some real ramifications. That makes every cop in that command more unsafe. That makes cops in other commands more vulnerable. That spreads to other people out there that want to taunt cops. If you think you can just grab some cops, grab at them, what's next? You're just going to slap a cop in the face? I think it's. I'm not saying I'm not excusing either one, but I think there has to be scales to this.
Yeah. And what was I going to say? Look at the discipline for Richie Taylor. Like
but
you got that up
easy.
already. I mean,
he got off easy. It was bullshit. Yeah, he got off easy.
But we're gonna terminate a guy. These young stupid cops, young immature cops for doing something stupid, for that, and we're not gonna. Richie Taylor is busy getting. I mean, the point is that you have a broken job. We have a broken job, okay?
But John, I think the problem, honestly, my opinion, John, you're comparing these cops to you. You are a different class than these. You, me, and Marlon, our friends. Let's be honest, are a different class than these cops. They're in a completely different environment. We were in a much more disciplined environment. We were better cops. We walked a lot smarter. These guys, they're in an complete undisciplined department right now. I don't even think we can compare us to them.
I'm just saying, I'm just pretending as if I'm the police commissioner. That's what I would do, and that's what and the police department would be disciplined. That's it. I mean, I just if you either have a standard or you don't, and that's it. So. And
I agree. So what would you do to Richie Taylor?
Oh, Richie Taylor, he would have been demoted back to captain immediately. He would have got.
Same here.
Yeah, I mean, but also, more than likely, I would have been pushing for him to be arrested. I would have been pushing for criminal charges, and while he was facing criminal charges, I would have. He would be demoted as captain in a modified assignment right now with no car.
Spot on.
Yeah. Sorry about that comment, Ruben. That was for Danny. I was responding to Danny Regan's. If Taylor should have been removed, Taylor should have been fired for that. Okay.
Yeah.
He should have been fired. Okay.
I mean, I think the one thing we all agree on is we want a better reflection for the NYPD. It's terrible, how we do it, and I think that our standards and our friends and listeners are Mike Marino's here right now, Pat Donahue. All the other cops that are on here, active retired, Stephen S. We have a far more. We have a higher threshold of what we want the police department to be than what it is right now. It's sad, but how do we expect two cops to carry themselves professional, not make a stupid picture when Richie Taylor runs around and has allegations of stealing all these hours? I just if I was those cops, I'm like, yeah, what I did was dumb, but look at this guy. I didn't steal anything.
Yeah.
You know, hey, you want to fight me? I had my hat backwards. This guy stole ours. I'm not saying any of them are right.
Yeah.
But it's easy for them to just point fingers. Hey, yeah, this guy John Shell on social media just being completely unprofessional. That guy was the chief of department. So you tell me if my hat's backwards, I can't become the chief of department? If I throw gang signs, I can't become the chief of department?
Sick. So, all right, let's go. Let's do 2 hours, 14 minutes. Everybody wants to enjoy their Memorial Day. It's 10:20. Before we run, let's just hit one more topic and then we'll get out of here. New York City violence interrupter who was charged twice with murder is now being eyed in an NYPD slashing. Right? So this is coming out of Bragg. It's Bronx rises up against gun violence, plagued with problems of arrests. Even the director himself was arrested. This is the video that comes out. They're eyeing this one dude that was charged with murder twice. Now and he works for Bragg, so he's basically a civil servant because he's taxpayer funded. We don't know how he gets hired. We don't know how they get paid, but we do know that New York City is currently shelling out over $100 million a year to violence intervention programs because, according to Brad Landa, they helped bring shootings down by 21%. I don't know. He has no data to back it up, but he put out a report saying he has no data. He needs more data. He needs more metrics, but they've been successful and he wants to give more money to them. Zohran Mamdani said that he actually wants to increase the funding by 275%. So think about that. It's already $100 million and he wants to increase that $100 million in the budget he wants to increase it by 275% because it's been so successful. Here's the video of the individual. So, guy standing there with his 2 kids, one in a stroller, little girl, after school, follows the guy to the store, boom, slashes him in the face, slashes him in his face again, walks away with the knife in his hand right by the little kids. 2 guys on the corner notice it. They back up. So this is your tax dollars hard at work. I mean, you know, in the current state of the police department, more than likely this guy's fighting public safety here. So, you know, he's a crowning, shining light of public safety. So he'll probably be a first grade detective in the NYPD in the next 3 years.
Yeah. Yeah. That whole program we talked about before has the metrics for like, you know, for measuring their successes and failures. Like, where are they, you know? Like I think that this entire thing is like first of all, I think it's a grift for the progressive industrial complex. Then I also think that this is part of the city's idea of trying to trying to civilianize parts of the police department. And I think the elephant in the room with that is, of course, the budget that I always talked about, you know. But I look at this and I think, like, why does this program even exist? You know, it's like, why if it's we have neighborhood organizations, but those aren't, those should be worked at from the ground level, from the community that comes together and does something, not to have like a government funded boondoggle like this. Would there be a need for this if we had more cops in the city? Really, you know? Entire thing is just a mess.
So it's interesting, right? We could kind of weave these in together, right? So here we have violence interrupters that are being paid by taxpayer dollars, who most of them come from former gangs. And then we have 2 cops throwing up gang signs. So, it's kind of like to me, like an oxymoron. Like, hey, we shouldn't have cops throwing up gang signs, but we have violence interrupters. Most of them are in gangs, and we're paying them to give us inside information. So they're both stupid. It's absolutely ridiculous. Cops shouldn't be throwing up gang signs, and we sure as hell shouldn't be hiring violence interrupters that have a criminal history, and most of them come from gangs. And now, not only that, they get a bird's eye view and get inside information of the police department. Absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous, this program. What do these guys actually do? What benefit have they had? What impact have they had on public safety, if any? It's absolutely ridiculous. What inside information have they learned about the police department to actually make perpetrators more effective? What information have they gotten from the police department to bring back to the gangs inside these communities? Now, some of them may have been rehabilitated, but clearly some of them have not. Absolutely ridiculous. What a joke. Want to talk about a joke? That's a joke.
You know what's funny? When the police department went into Bronx Rises Up Against Gun Violence to investigate this, you know what they were told at the door?
Yeah,
We don't work with the police.
Yeah.
We don't work with the police. This is the head of the Bronx Violence Interrupter Program. This is in 2024. Orange County District Attorney Hoover, director of Bronx Rises Gun Violence, an anti-violence program that works to promote safer streets, sentenced to 10 years in prison. Michael Rodriguez previously pled guilty to narcotics and conspiracy charges. He also had to forfeit a car and $165,000 as ill-gotten proceeds of his crime. So, I mean, again, this has been a huge problem. And is any of that money really being utilized properly? You know, a search warrant, July 26, 2023, a search warrant was executed at Michael Rodriguez, who was then the head of Bronx Rises Against Gun Violence, where they seized 1,516 grams of cocaine. It's over 1.5 kilos of cocaine, 165,000 in U.S. currency, scales, a money counter, an unlicensed .380 Ruger caliber pistol, an unlicensed Bond Arm .357 caliber handgun, a vacuum sealer, digital scales, and jewelry, estimated to have an approximate value of $50,000. So that's a lot of stuff to have. And where do you get that from? Where do you get all that stuff from? Well, one from taxpayer funds, and the other from the proceeds of the crime he was committing. Another incident that came out from Bronx Rises Up Against Gun Violence is ex-con gets caught with a ghost gun in April 9th of 2024. A man accused of carrying a ghost gun and a bag of crack when he was caught fare beating at a Bronx subway station works with a city-funded anti-violence group that tries to steer away youth from guns and gangs, the Daily News has learned. Jermaine Green, who was arrested trying to slip through an open exit door into the Fordham Road station at University Heights at about 5:45 p.m. on March 28th, is a member of Bronx Rises Against Gun Violence. Bragg, a law enforcement says, with the case. Run by Good Shepherd Services, Bragg promotes safer streets where violence is not accepted and uses credible messengers, ex-cons who have either been in gangs or lived through violence, to monitor areas of the Bronx where violence flares up and de-escalate clash through conflict mediation. And so, I mean, what I've observed is that at shootings, all of these groups just show up after, either hold a press conference or make a Facebook post, and that's about it. And then they just get a payday. So that's basically what's happening. So $100 million in New York City taxpayer dollars are going out to these programs that really have no proven, you know, we're going to be told that they're evidence-based public safety strategies, but New York City has yet to release any of the evidence. So, and this has been happening again since Bill Bratton. And since Bill Bratton re-entered the police department under Bill de Blasio, and this has been a huge Democratic grift that's been occurring nationally in every Democratic city and state. And we're told how successful they are. We're told how great they are, yet you have no knowledge of how any of this happens, what they've done, what they do. It's a complete grift.
So if these two cops, if it turns out the investigation that they're real gang members, and they get terminated, they could just become violence interrupters and get a pretty good salary, right? I mean, pretty much that's what we're hiring. Might as well. If it doesn't work out for them, they can become violence interrupters. That's basically what we're saying. It's absolutely, the program, it actually falls flat in its face. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's another feel-good program that doesn't work. It sounds great on paper, but it's bullshit. Pure bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah. These directives come from above Bratton. You know, it's bigger than Bratton. These things come from the government and from those think tanks that are work with the upper echelons of government and the highest people in industry, and they tell them what to do, and then the ideas trickle down.
Whose name was used to do it?
No, I agree. It came from Bratton, but I'm just saying that it's a larger agenda here. And that larger agenda is why you see it in different cities like Chicago, New York, LA, all these big cities. They all have this same grift going on. And again, I think the elephant in the room is money, and the fact that pensions are costing the government so much money, the entitlements. A lot of that federal budget is due to entitlements, and I think this is just them finding ways to do it on the cheaper. They would love cops, but they hate having to pay a pension, and thus they're trying to go around it and find civilian methods to solve the issues. This is why, again, you're seeing the same thing in every Democrat city.
It's interesting you say that, right? Because right now, Florida has been, there's a lot of stuff on social media, a lot of stuff going on. Florida has 23 million people in comparison to New York State having 18 million people, and their budget is less than the budget of New York City itself. So a state of 23 million people has a smaller budget than a city of 8.5 million people. So I think that's definitely something that should be explored. I do think that money does have a big part in this. I think that's a great point. And if you look at the budget in Florida and how they're thriving in comparison to New York City, it's quite interesting.
Yeah. Well, a lot of Florida is newer too. It's all these old cities that have built up decades of malfeasance and financial mismanagement. And again, all of that stuff is coming to a head, and I don't know how they're going to figure out a way to solve it. But there's a lot of debt that these cities owe, these municipalities owe, and where are they finding the money for? When that 39 billion currently is due in around 2032, where's New York City going to find $39 billion when every year we have a hole of $7 billion coming up? And it's actually according to Adams, is $6-7 billion, but it's probably going to enlarge to 10 billion by the time we get there. So where are they going to find the money for all of this? Yeah. So.
Well, and that's why we should be holding the individuals who get used as puppets, as hand puppets, accountable. Their names should get blasted. I'm not excusing anyone. Oh, that was over his head. I refuse to excuse anybody for anything. As individuals, we should all be held accountable for our actions. Mm-hmm. And until we go back to doing that, expect a lot more of the bullshit that we're getting here. Expect a lot more of it. You're gonna get that 275% increase, and you're gonna get appointed police managers that are gonna sit there and tell you our partners in the violence interrupter groups across the city who kick us out and say we don't work with the police, but yet you're gonna say that they're your partners while they're out there risking the lives of every New Yorker while running around with guns, selling drugs, selling guns, and we're gonna pretend like this shit's working, and it's not. It's clearly not. And I haven't heard a law enforcement manager in New York push back against it. I haven't heard a fucking Republican say anything from it. I haven't heard anybody talk about it because they're all afraid of it. So whether it's a larger thing or whatever, I'm not worried about the globalist powers in the world. I'm worried about after I'm dead, what happens to my soul after that. And so what we're doing here on Earth is temporary. So everybody that's worried about who's in charge, who's holding Trump's buttons, who's holding Bratton's buttons, who's holding all the Tish's buttons, I could give two shits, because ultimately you're the one allowing yourself to be used. You're the one going through the whole thing. You should be held accountable. You should be shamed. And that's it. I don't excuse anybody for anything.
Yeah, they should. I mean, honestly, it really does all come down to money, because think about it. In Florida, there's no state income tax, and people are thriving in Florida, right? And yet, and the property tax is much lower. If you look at like New York State, I read that you need 270,000 to be modest with a family of four. I think that's actually completely off. I think if you're a single guy and you make 300,000 a year, or 350,000 a year, I think you're actually poor. And some people say, how? Right? People say, oh, cops make great money. If you make 350,000 a year after your state income tax, after city tax and FICA and federal tax, what are you really coming home with? 175,000 maybe? Then after that 175,000, what is a monthly rent in New York City right now? Even if you're living in an outside borough, it's probably 3,500 or more. And then your groceries, all that. What are you really coming home with? And yet in Florida, The salaries are lower. People are thriving. They do much better. They don't have all these crazy taxes. Just it's all about money. It's absolutely.
Yeah, and keep in mind this police department is now, according to their own numbers, that it's 6%. We vacancy rate is 6% in the NYPD. So and that's with the current budget problems we had this year. Imagine with the forthcoming years. So as next year, the state had to give us like $6 billion. Next year, they're gonna have to give us $7 billion. Then the year after that, another $7 billion. And the state itself is going through financial hardship. So I don't know where this is going. I don't know how it gets solved, but it looks to me like you're going to get more violence interrupters rather than less violence interrupters. The way things are going. Unfortunately,
he was just a bad apple. That's all, Marlon. Just a bad apple. He didn't mean it.
Well, he already said he's increasing the budget by 275%. So you're 100% getting more. Pat Donahue says, can retired MOS be hired as violence interrupters? Yeah, I'm sure, as long as they align with the Democratic Party of New York, and you're going to be the same low integrity individuals who saw nothing, heard nothing, and spoke nothing when all the corruption was happening under the Adams administration. Yeah, I'm sure those guys could get hired as violence interrupters, and they'll be just as effective at violence interrupting as they were as being police officers. Zero productivity on providing public safety or helping anybody. But hey, if they open it up, I'll apply. I'll apply for that.
John.
No, I'm
John,
sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I'm sorry. They're never gonna hire you, former MOS, as a violence interrupter, because the violence interrupter.
Sure, I could name a group of guys that would get hired. I could name a ton of them.
Well, in an honest world, I think the violence interrupter program amounts to simply paying the community not to shoot each other. Yeah. So.
And they're not doing. It's not doing a great job of it.
Yeah. No, now they just slash each other. I honestly, I think, John, I think that's a great point. I agree. I think that we have to hold people. You have to hold them accountable. Like Bratton, we can't just say, well, there's people above him, which there are. I agree. There's definitely an agenda going on. But if you're allowing yourself to regurgitate that stuff, man, I kind of question who you are. It's the same thing with which is why I have a problem with all these chiefs that are out there vying for jobs out there. If you're endorsing, you're saying that you're willing to explore and that you endorse part of Mondani's plan or any of his plan, then you're full of shit. There's no way that we could say, wow, you're a great cop and you're great for law enforcement, and then you rubber stamp this bullshit with community policing. It doesn't make sense. So yeah, we have to hold him accountable because
but Eric, he only said that he approves. He approves looking at exploring it. He only endorsed exploring it.
Okay, you're right. Exactly. Much different. I approve of looking at it.
Yeah, no. I think Mondani's plan is great.
That's like saying, yeah, I don't cheat on my wife. I just look at other women all day, and I just text other women. But
We're just exploring.
Just exploring.
So before we run out of here, just a lot of people asking if we could talk about this. Police officer Angel Acevedo, I believe he took his own life, unfortunately. So Fund the First has a fundraiser right now, raising money for his kids. I believe he was part of Transit District 20. Really, so like, we had a good stretch where we hadn't had a lot of suicides, but this unfortunately just popped up right before the summer. And again, if any of you guys are experiencing anything like that, there's life after this job. There's life after a lot of different things, issues, I don't know, of marital issues with your health, kids. There's always going to be dark times, but like you should really, this should not happen. This should not happen with anybody, and I don't know, I don't know what could be done to avoid more of this. But yeah, rest in peace to Angel Acevedo. If any of you guys could help his family out, go over to Fund the First. It's assistance for the children of NYPD police officer Angel Acevedo. And I believe it's, I forget who's running it, but there's an organization that, and I don't know why I can't think of the name, but it's the organization that popped up after police officer Rossiter killed himself. And they've been helping. I'll get the name in a second, but they've been helping, bring awareness to suicide out there. and they've been helping fundraising when it happens. So terrible, tragic loss.
Yeah, it's so sad. You know, I spoke to Hassan by text, and he said he was very close to him because Hassan was in transit too. And Hassan, so I'm sorry for your loss, brother. This is really sad. I already had 3 years on the job. Just young guy. What a shame, man. You know, young, handsome guy. It's like, man, you know, that's why I always tell myself, please, anybody out there, you know, because I'm hurting too, man. And I tell you, I live by the one theory. For me, it's one more second, one more minute, one more hour, one more day, one more week, one more month, one more year. Just keep pushing, man. Anybody out there, you know, we're all hurting in different ways. We all have conflict of life and the storms of life, and we have to weather those storms together. And that's why, you know, John, we say it often, right? And Marlon, the eternal pressures of the NYPD. I don't know what's going on in his life, but can we not just love each other in death? Can we actually love each other while we're breathing? Because, hey, we got plenty of time to die. Death is permanent. Life is temporary. But can we permanently love each other? And that's what I like to see.
Yeah, and the organization is Beyond the Badge New York. So they have an Instagram handle. I think they're on Facebook, a couple other platforms, but they're the ones that organized it for his wife, for Angel Acevedo's wife, obviously on the behalf of his kids. So I don't know, man. You know, I'm really not much to say, but it's terrible.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. We had a lot of, I think District 20 was where Captain Highland had those problems, right? I think it's the same district. There's a lot going on in that district. Yeah.
You know, it's sad too, man. I don't want to see anybody kill themselves, but, and this is my message to men. It's like you see much more suicide amongst men in policing than women. But men really, like, you know, they have a hard time of opening up to other men, right? It's kind of like this code, right? You know, you always say you're good, everything's okay. But sometimes we just have to be honest with ourselves, you know. It's this is sad, man. You know, it really is. You know, I don't know. I don't know if we'll ever fix this epidemic between military and law enforcement. Suicide is just so rampant, and every time it happens, it rips through every one of us. It's horrifying.
I think we're not gonna fix it by you guys on the job still remaining silent about all the problems on the job. You know, I think, yeah, I don't know what's happening to y'all, but you know, I think you got to stand. I think there needs to be more pushback in all the crap that's going on with you guys. You know, your unions ain't talking about it. Nobody's talking about it. You know. And I think you're all walking around with all of this stuff bottled up in you, and unfortunately, I think things like this are the results of it, you know. And it's pretty sad, you know. So,
yeah, all right. Let's get to the coffee and donuts, people. You know, anybody out there struggling, you know, get yourself help. NYPD is only a job. There's life after it. You know, look at Marlon. He did it. You know, I did it. You know, people leave. You know, it is what it is. You can you know, things happen, dude. So I don't know if it was job related. I'm sure the pressures of the job are there on top of, you know, whatever you're dealing with in your regular life, which is often much worse than what you're dealing with on the job. So yeah, I don't know. If you need help, you know, ask for it. You know what I mean? That's all I could say. You know, man up. That's all I got to say. And when I say man up, I know a couple of people will butthurt in here. Oh, you know, what does that mean for women? It means man up. It means do what you got to do. Be a woman. Still, you know, woman, man, whatever. They all end in MAN, right? So. All right, let's get to the coffee and donuts. Let's go. Nolan's been coming at me in the chat hard. Nolan, shout out to you. Thanks for the coffee and donuts.
And Nolan, thank you for that shout out to Derek, man. I appreciate it, brother. Really, it means a lot.
Yeah. Stephen S. He says one high standard for all. Stephen, thanks for always being here, brother. We appreciate you.
Stephen has got a heart of gold, honestly, and yes, one high standard for all, brother. Thank you for the coffee and donuts.
Mon Samurai, he says, then you're absolutely wrong. While you're working, you should always have your gun, shield, radio, and handcuffs at minimum. That's why you have standards at all times or at no times. No excuses. Totally agree with you. Look, we're just saying we're all human. We make mistakes. You should never leave the precinct like that. Absolutely, 100%. You know, tactically, it's a disaster.
Oh, I think you should grow some balls, you know, if you're gonna do that, you know. I mean, we all ran out of it. The thing is, if you have no balls, the radio isn't gonna give you those balls. Okay, you should be a cop. And what happens if you're off duty? You don't have your radio on you. What are you gonna get pushed around and not be a cop? I mean, grow some balls, man. You know, nobody. You're a cop, and stop letting people walk all over you in that uniform. You know the law. You know, stand up for the law and stand up for the uniform. You know, don't let people walk all over you. You know.
Right. For that to happen, though, you have to have pride and dignity and self-respect. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of these cops don't have those things. You don't have to be a tough guy. There's plenty of people out there that are not tough guys. And if you say something to their woman, they're going to find it in them to stand up for their woman because they have pride and dignity. So why not have pride and dignity when you're in that uniform? And sure as hell, when you're out of uniform, you need to be the same person. You need to have pride and dignity. So if these people get stepped on a uniform, off duty, forget about it. They must just be doormats. Absolutely insane. But as I said before, I do think that the weak cowards that there are now, we had them before, but they weren't as exposed as they are now.
Well, I think the other issue is that, like, you know, Scott Monroe is like, you know, he's like been eating off this podcast, like trying to form his Scott Monroe brand coalition. And Scott, we saved you today, but Friday we're going to talk about why all those bills just got passed through city council, why all of a sudden Mondani and the city council, all of a sudden they support pension reform and pension sweeteners for cops. Like, we're not dumb. I know exactly what's happening, and we'll talk about that on Friday. We'll definitely get into that because that's a real nefarious thing what you're doing, and you're not going to like what we got to say Friday. So make sure whoever you got taking notes, make sure they take good notes Friday and get right into it because you're going to have to put out a lot of statements about what we said. But he's putting out all this information about how New York needs a halo law. And that is, in my opinion, complete misinformation. That is a media propaganda storm campaign. We do not need a halo law in New York at all. What we need to do is cops that know the law and are willing to enforce the law. What those two guys did was a crime. But what those two guys did, they do all day long, 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day. And there's about 20 other influences that do the same shit. And all these cops let them get away with it. So I question, do they really know the law? Because I feel like when you know the law, like you just won't let things like that happen to you if you know how to act, as opposed to you see this guy, I'm forming these coalitions. We got this bill passed through the supermajority. We're going to get this halo law passed. Why do you need the halo law passed? There was multiple crimes that occurred there and nothing was happened. Absolutely nothing happened to them. So you don't need that halo law. And I think what we need to do, and like I said originally, the cops should be trained on how to act in these situations. This should be trained in the academy, and there should be policy coming out on when you will and won't arrest in these scenarios. There's no need for that law. That law is just building the Monroe brand, in my opinion. It's bullshit.
Yeah, I agree. It's almost like you're putting laws on top of other laws. If you actually enforce the law and you actually had a tough presence, you would need that halo law. I think it's silly. You can put that halo law in effect, and if the cops aren't enforcing it, what does it matter?
Doesn't.
That guy with the backwards hat, is he enforcing a halo law? No.
And what's the argument going to be? Well, the DAs aren't drawing it up. All right. Well, whatever. It's going to be the same.
I didn't know we were for the DAs.
The sergeant's going to be mad at me if I bring it in. All right, whatever.
Well, if you're not used, if you're not used to your bosses being mad at you, then you sure as hell ain't being a cop. 100%. Because my commanders love me, but there were plenty of times they were mad at me. I was like, nope, we ain't doing this, or we are doing that. Sometimes you have to be able to stand your own ground. And if that means getting in trouble or getting yelled at, so what? I used to ask my commanders questions. I knew damn right. I knew they were going to yell at me, and I asked them anyway. If it was for the benefit of my guys, I'm asking the question. Even if he's going to chew my ass. I don't care.
My job as a supervisor was arguing with people that were my peers, people below me, and the people above me. That's what I did 90% of the time, was fight with the people on this job to make sure things get done right. Like, that's what you do. Like, there is going to be friction in the New York City Police Department. It's a really hard job. It's a really tough job. There's a lot of bullshit that comes with it. And you need a lot to go outside of your own command a lot. You're going to fight with people internally. You're going to need to rely on other units to get things done externally. You're going to fight. There's going to be fight every single day, all day, every step of the way. You know, every step of the way. That's your job as an NYPD supervisor. You should know that by the time you become a supervisor, because you should be arguing with everyone the whole way up. You know, as a cop, you should see that. You know, you should see that there's friction. Every time you bring in an arrest, the desk officer doesn't want you to bring in an arrest. He doesn't want prisoners in the house. Why? Because it's a liability on him. Now he's got to worry about the guy killing himself. He's got to worry about them fighting them. It's more work for them to do. Anytime you hand somebody something, they're going to be annoyed at it. Nobody's going to be like, oh, you're bringing this whole disaster in. Nobody's doing it.
I used to always say,
human nature.
That's right, brother. I used to always say, you commanding officers, they want the bodies in. The desk officers want the bodies out. You're 100% right.
Yeah. And the same guy that's annoyed at the desk officer, guess what? When you become the desk officer, you're going to be just like that dude. You're going to be just like that dude. You might be a little bit better than him, but more than likely, you're going to be like, all right, make sure you do everything right. Make sure you get these perps out of the house. You're not just going to be sitting there like this, like, yeah, I'm not worried about it. Because guess what? If you're going to get a perp that leaves that cell or hangs himself in the cell, and you're going to be getting one up your ass. You know? So I always laugh at that too.
Yeah. Yeah, that whole thing, Halo law, is stupid. We already have a Halo law. It's called OGA. Okay.
Exactly.
You don't need it. You don't need this bullshit. Okay. What that is a MacGuffin for Scott Monroe. It's a plot device to further his narrative of working for you guys when he's not. Okay. They propose something that's impossible and it's not gonna happen, but he can always tell you, hey, look, we're working on it. Look, we tried. We're working for you here. Look at the efforts we're doing. It's never gonna pass, and it's bullshit. And you already have one, and it's called OGA. Okay, use it.
Well, I think the Halo law for them is going to be it's subliminal message for code for endorsing Kathy Hochul. That's what it is.
Absolutely,
we had to endorse her. Got the Halo.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Look, I think it's even more nefarious than that. Like, if you, and we'll talk about it on Friday, but if you look at the budget that's being proposed by New York City, it relies on Mondani's ability to dip into the pension funds.
Yes.
Like, they haven't moved away from it at all. And basically he signaled that all the unions are on board. And now all of a sudden, after he signals that, he's backing legislation to boost pensions for a very select few people. Like, the guys with over 30 years on, the guys that are 62 and want to stay till 65, tier 2A, which is almost gone, but we need a bone to throw the rank and file to say what you're doing. Tier 3 is like, what about us? I was like, yeah, you could stay till you're 65. Nobody cares about you. You don't have any of your guys in any union leadership. You guys are the overwhelming majority of the job. The president of every single union in the NYPD right now should be tier 2. Should be tier 3. There shouldn't be any more tier 2. Hey, guys, they're not looking after your own interest. I've been saying that. I've been telling you that since COVID. They're after their own personal interest. Who benefits from that? Those old men sitting in those positions, and the top head of unions. And basically, they got their sweeteners. They got their personal gains. And they're going to allow Mondani to dip into your pensions. I mean, it's that simple. And anyone not paying attention to it is you're out of your mind. Is there going to probably be an endorsement for Hochul tied to that too? Yeah, sure. Because like I said, they work for the Democratic Party. They don't work for you. They work for the city of New York. They don't work for you. They don't care about when you get your raise because they just got their raise. They just got their extra 2 years at 8.25. Oh, remember the 30-year boost for the guys with 30 years on? Who'd that benefit? Any of you guys? Any of you guys in tier 2A? Oh, no, none of you guys got 30 years on. Any of you guys in tier 3? Oh, no. And you guys think you could make it to 30 years? No, but hey, guess what? Who benefited from that? Oh, wow. Guys in 1PP and union executives. Wow. Okay. So none of this helps anything that they're claiming to. We're going to help retention. Who are you helping the retention of? The guys in One Police Plaza and the guys in union? the guys that you're going to keep another couple of years of you as the union president. You know, a total joke. So we got to go into that in depth. But it's real nefarious shit, dude. Real nefarious shit. So, you know, Pat Donahue says, please take a moment on this Memorial Day to remember United States Air Force Technical Sergeant Joseph Lem, killed in action 12/1/15, member of Bronx Warrants. Yeah, rest in peace, Detective Lem.
Yeah. Thank you, Pat Donahue. That's a good tribute. Wow.
Mon Samurai. A code of conduct is all the time or none of the time. The same thing goes with integrity and discipline. All these things are easy to talk about, but not easy to practice. No respect for your career or your duty as a police officer.
Well said. Thank you for your coffee donuts, brother. Well said. Great point.
Yeah. He also says standards are part of every moment while in uniform or not. You can't pick and choose. Either you have integrity or you don't. That includes driving safely to work, getting a cup of coffee, taking a group photo, etc. Yeah, I agree.
Right.
I totally agree. Anthony says, good morning, all. One Bravos and other branches of service. Enjoy your day today. Yeah, absolutely, everybody. Have a safe, definitely a safe, happy Memorial Day. Finest 25 says, super late, watching the replay. Finest, thank you, brother. Thank you for always being here.
Thank you.
And Pat's been abusing my shirt all day. So is John wearing a Laverne and Shirley Carmine the Big Ragu inspired shirt today? Is John going to dance class after the podcast?
Yo, so Pat Donahue, I've been telling Pat Donahue, I've been telling John every time we get on before we start, I'm like, what, he dressed like Danny Terrio? To me, he's got the Danny Terrio look.
Look, this is it's the summertime, bro. I act like it. You know, this is what's known as a Sergio Tacchini cabana wear. All right. Nice velour shirt, nice velour outfit. It's Memorial Day. I'm gonna be hanging out. You know.
You got the velour shorts with the big drawstring?
Everything, bro. You know. Let my neighbors know, you know, shiny white Air Force Ones. Let my neighbors know you got a real live Italian here from New York City.
You got the legs hanging?
You don't have to go watch about us on TV. You don't have to follow the Instagram handles. You know, just come over for some coffee. That's it. Juju says John is a metrosexual. I am, Juju. I am.
Yo, Juju, you get all these comments. You don't coffee and donuts, Juju?
Yeah.
Wow, cheap.
I am. Crazy 10-7 says I'm a sailor of questionable persuasion.
That's pretty funny.
You guys are fucked up. You guys are fucked up. All right. Yeah, but there was a lot of funny ones about the shirt. I don't remember where the hell they were. But am I going to a South Florida party? Too hot for me this time of year. I go to South Florida in the winter. I go up north in the summer, bro. It's too hot for me.
Danny Terrio, baby. That's what I say. Crazy 10-7, love you too. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Yeah. So, all right, guys, listen, have a happy Memorial Day. Wednesday, I think we're having a doctor come on. He wrote like he did a study on use of force and how it increased over the last 10 years. And I think in his study like that he wrote, we're gonna talk about like legislation versus actual department use of force policy, and has that had any implications on why assaults against police officers are up significantly. You know, so if you look over this last few decades, you know, roughly around 2013, when 2012 is, I believe his study started, 2012 up, it's just a sharp increase up. It's just flying up of police officers getting assaulted. So I think that'll be an interesting conversation to hear what he's got to say about that. And then Friday, like I said, Friday we'll definitely hit on those bills that would just rush through in city council, in a leftist city council that hates the NYPD. They have all of these anti-NYPD bills, yet all of a sudden they care about helping you guys. everybody should raise their eyebrows at how Monroe and the other unions are cheering this on and what the real reason behind that is.
Yeah.
Well, listen, thank you everyone for the coffee and donuts. It's I think it's Memorial Day. Again, we say happy Memorial Day. And you should have a happy time. Enjoy it, right? Opening for the summer. Barbecue, spending time with family. For the same token, flip side, please remember all the fallen military families. Seriously, remember all the guys that gave up their lives and made that ultimate sacrifice. And that goes to military and also law enforcement. I think law enforcement should be considered veterans and service members. So and thank you to the Gold Star families that have to survive that ultimate sacrifice. So thank you, everyone. We appreciate it. We'll be back Wednesday, of course. And Tuesday, you get your 10-4 Tavern. So thank you to the Finest Unfiltered Network and the awesome engagement here by the chat, our friends and listeners. We appreciate it. So good stuff, as always. I think this was a great conversation today. Really interesting perspectives, and probably not. I think what is really the it factor for this platform is you're not going to hear this anywhere else. This perspective that you heard today, you're not going to hear, and even from the three of us, we all gave different perspectives and different ideas. You're not going to hear this anywhere else. You want to feel good police podcast, you go watch these other ones and tell you about how great everyone is. This is where it's at, right here. Finest Unfiltered.
Yeah. Thank you guys for joining us. We appreciate you like always, and we appreciate your super chats. And if you're out there on patrol, stay safe, stay alert, and do your job. Somebody gets in your face, you got to do your job, guys. Okay.
Absolutely.
So,
Someone asked.
Sorry, but sorry, John, but you got to read this comment. It's hilarious. Danny Reagan's got the comment of the day.
What did he say?
That shit is hilarious. John's considerate and stops so Sal can air. That is funny.
Like I said, I got no hate for nobody, but when you want to talk shit, then
that is hilarious.
I talk shit out loud. When you want to talk shit and dark shadows and do sneaky shit, I don't do that. So you know what I mean. I just air my feelings.
Why are you talking to Jack?
I'm just not a coward. That's the difference. I'm not afraid to go to New York City, Daddy. I'm not afraid to sit down and with people that disagree with me. So I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to have those conversations like a lot of people are. So that's one. But yeah, no, that's it, fellas. So look, everybody, do us a favor wherever you're watching or listening to the show. If you could just do us a favor, like, share, subscribe. Those of you on audios, if you could leave us a review, we'd really appreciate it. 5-star review, preferably. Juju, you could leave your bad one if you like. And we appreciate you helping us grow this platform. 10-4 Tavern is going to be back at you tomorrow, 7:05 p.m. Eastern time. Make sure you check them out. Well, of course, Wednesday we'll be back, and then that will be followed up by the executive perspective. So make sure you check those two shows out. Like I said, we're going to be hitting you with a lot more content. I've been doing a lot of shorts out there. They've been going pretty far, so I appreciate you guys with that. We're going to be starting to mix it up, starting to bring a lot more content, a lot different length of content. Actually had a funny comment yesterday on my Facebook. Someone asked, could you remove Marlon from the podcast? And I was like, that's a funny comment. I said, because people asked me if I could remove myself from the podcast that I founded. I said, and that's not happening. And then he basically said, he goes, well, I'm going to watch anyway, but whatever. And I said, look, we're all very well aware that, that all the personalities on here might not agree with all of you, right? Some people like Eric, some people like me, some people like Marlon, some people hate me, some people hate Eric, some people hate Marlon. Right?
I think it's funny, right?
It just is what it is. And so that's why we're going to continue to mix up the content and bring different shows and different stuff in there to continue to grow this platform to be where it should be, I believe. And because I don't think we're anywhere near where it's going to be or where it should be. So we appreciate everybody. So if you could just do us that favor, like, share, subscribe. There's still over 60% of our returning viewers are not subscribed, do not like anything. And, if you guys could do that, we'd appreciate it.
Yeah, they hate us, but they'll watch us for 3 hours. Huh?
Yeah.
Was that Slick Rick? Because that guy seems to. I think he's a union member, DEA union member who has like
never seen the dude before. I don't know who he was. I don't even know who he was. Never seen the name before.
He sure as hell doesn't have an affinity for Marlon. So he definitely listen. Nobody hates on you that's doing better than you. So, but when you're hating on us, I love it. It's like, damn. We must be doing something right. So people that hate you, it's good. If they hate you, they're still watching you. It's pretty damn good because I'm not watching people I hate. Juju hates us and he stays here for the whole 3 hours. You guys hate us, but you're here. So thanks. Imagine hanging out with somebody you can't stand. I can't stand these people, but I'm gonna watch them all 3 hours. I'm gonna show them. I'm gonna watch every second.
and spend 3 hours angry typing at us. Yeah.
I love it. Juju's like, I'm gonna show them, and I'm gonna watch every second. I don't watch it twice.
Yeah. Well, anyway,
Juju, you show us.
Well,
who do you think Juju masturbates to? Which one?
We're still happy you're here, Juju, even though you dislike all three of us.
Who do
you
you
and
think
a lot of other people, Juju. You and a lot.
Who do you think Juju masturbates to? Me? You? Mom?
I think Juju should really show us by watching a marathon of all those shows, of all our shows. You know, that will really get us, Juju.
Yeah. You showed us now. Oh,
Oh, by the way, go Knicks, baby. Go Knicks. Holy shit, here we go.
Yeah. I actually want them to lose this game.
What, just so you get an extra game in?
No, I don't want them. I don't want them to have a layover. I want them to keep playing. You know, I don't like how they responded on the layover or on the other series. You know what I mean? Like having to wait. Like the first game, there was a real stale. They were really stale in that first game coming into Cleveland. And that was because they had a lot of days off, you know. So I don't want them to be waiting for the OKC series to be over, you know. So
they got the hot hand right now. You know, I don't want to see them lose. I know what you're saying. I just don't want to lose.
I want them in that game mode speed, bro. Look, I'm not saying that they shouldn't go out there to win, but if I had it my way, they wouldn't. I think they're gonna take them tonight too. But if I had it my way, that would be the scenario. They have a hard-fought game this game. They beat them the next game right when OKC takes the series, and then boom, now we're going up against OKC. Win the championship, first one in my lifetime.
Same here, bro. This is the time where they actually have a legitimate chance of winning. Like it's looking pretty damn good. You can't count them out right now. If anyone thinks that they can, I don't know, you're not watching too well.
Yeah,
maybe.
Let's not get ahead of yeah.
As long as they don't get hit by any injuries right now, you know, if Towns doesn't get any injuries, which I hope, and we're good.
It may be a replay. And remember 99? Yeah.
Yeah, but 99, that wasn't a good team, dude.
Yeah.
That wasn't a good team. That was a piece together team. These guys have been playing together forever, dude. You know, Brunson, Hart, and Bridges, they've been playing together for years now, dude. They played together in college.
Yeah,
you
true.
Know, I agree. They got a really good formula. Then they got OG, they got Towns, Deuce McBride's playing great. Like they're really playing really, really well, dude. And that other kid, Clement too, is playing really well. And I like Clement. I think he was good last year too, but they were just all injured last year.
I'm just
99, they were more dominant. They were dominating. These guys are fighting hard. And so they're gonna, you know, I just hope they don't get injuries. 99, they were like dominating. And then
I don't think so.
Yes. Dude,
no. I think they were. Weren't they an 8 seed and they went to the championship?
Yeah, they were low down. They were
like an 8 seed, dude. Like
they were 8 seed, but when they went to the playoffs, man, they did really well. They were dominating the playoffs.
Yeah, but don't sleep on those Spurs. Those Spurs are young and hungry. And
that kid Wembanyama is sick. That kid is like when he gets just a little bit stronger and better, they're gonna have to figure out like another league out.
7'2"?
7'6".
7'6". Oh my god. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Sick stuff. So and that was the other topic that we missed is that the NYPD said no more watch parties outside of MSG. They said because it's too rowdy. And so what like really is it because it's too rowdy? No, it's because they don't have the manpower. I mean, just another signal of how low the manpower is in the NYPD. So I was just laughing my ass off. I'm like, people are like, oh, it's because they were, you know, it was because they were too rowdy and the cops didn't like it. The cops love doing that detail. Like they don't, they you crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Like, Knicks, I'll do it. You know, like and like yeah, it gets rowdy after 100%, and they're not able to staff it properly is the real reason. You know, and they're obviously not able to negotiate with Madison Square Garden either, because I would just say, look, you want the permit, hire more guys. We need 30 more of your security guards or whatever it is. You know, hire some guys that we're going to use. You guys are going to police this. We're going to police here. You know, and so, but not
hire
good
the guys who pay
doing that.
detail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think Tish wants a finals win?
No, New York City does not
Absolutely
want a finals.
Yeah, I agree.
New York City does not want a finals. Mondani doesn't want a finals. I think, and like I personally think that they're going to try not to do a ticket tape parade if they win. I don't think that's going to happen because I think they're going to have a parade regardless if they want to or not. But you know, I think they're going to try to hold off. You know, and that's going to just signal how hard they're hurting on the budget and how they don't have the manpower to staff these things.
Spot on.
No, great points. Great flash points. I think they have no choice. It will definitely happen, but I don't think they want it. I don't think they can stop it, but I think they. Come on. If you could have a West Indian parade, how the hell are you not going to have a ticket day parade?
Oh yeah,
By the way, I went to the ticket day parade at Cut School. What was that? 96 with the Yankees? 96 or 95? Oh man,
I was there.
You were there too? That was the best time, man. I cut school and went to that was awesome. I think it was 96, right?
I don't know. It was a couple of years. I just remember the
Lion
Kings were there and they wanted to kick our asses. That's all I remember.
Yeah.
They were rolling like 100 deep. I was like, let's get out of here before we get stabbed.
But that was a good ticket day parade. Good time.
Yeah. Yeah. 96 Modern Samurai.
96, I was 15, 16.
Yeah. Yep. Took the ferry over.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I used to cut school all the time. I had rollerblades. I would go rollerblade on the ferry and rollerblade through Chinatown. Back then, they were playing 3-card Monty. And I would try to pick out the guys who's in on the scheme. That was a good time.
Yeah. Good stuff. 1996, baby. Yeah. Anyway. So, all right, peoples. All right. Finest Unfiltered. We will be back at you. Enjoy. Have a happy, safe Memorial Day. No drinking and driving. Taking Uber, you cheap bastards. All right.
Well, call Scott Moreau. He's got Uber, right?
That probably went. That's probably gone.
Yeah, might as well. He's not doing anything else for you with all that money you pay him. So
yeah. Yeah, he's probably out east right now. He can't answer those.
Yo, calls. Danny Reagan's on fire today, man. This guy's hilarious. I was the toughest kid in New York City. Ask him, I'll tell you.
I was not tough at all, dude. I just had a bunch of haters like you, Danny, that all, you know, they were just they live vicariously through me. They were so curious about what I was doing with life. Yeah. I got beat up a whole lot, Danny. You know, what do you think my nose looks the way it does?
Yeah. Oh man. Oh jeez.
Yeah.
No, he's putting smiley faces. All right, yo, everybody, love you. Thank you.
All right. And shout out to Joe 14%. We missed you today. Have a happy Memorial Day.
I love you, Jack. Jack, by the way, Memorial Day is when veterans served. You know, I know you don't want to be a Marine or anything, but that's what men do. So.
He's a different generation. All right. Stop.
Trust fund.
He's a generation before they were men, you know.
Oh.
After they were men, I mean. So all right, peoples. All right, Finest Unfiltered. We're out.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?